A second, Julia.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Hello. Sorry. Can you hear me now? You just say yes or a plus in the chat box if you can hear and see me. Excellent. All right. Apologies again for that. So we're going to have a look at some of the tasks in A2 Key for Schools. We haven't got time to look at all of them in just 45 minutes or an hour. We'll think about some ideas to help develop student skills at writing, reading, listening, and speaking at the end, and hopefully some practical ideas for you to use in class. So in the chat box, please, we would like your feedback on this. What helps students improve their writing? What do you think helps students improve their writing? Practice, Annie, yes. Oh, nice chunks, especially at lower levels. Yep, definitely practice instructions, practice feedback. Writing, yes, I think helps a lot. Model texts, very nice. Reading, thank you, Anna. I was waiting for someone to say reading. I think reading definitely helps, and making sure students are familiar with as wide a range of appropriate texts as possible will definitely help them. Writing essays, definitely maybe not at A2. But I think as much practice as possible. And yeah, we have to decide what we're going to focus on. Anna, we focus on their spelling, on their grammar. It depends. We'll have a quick look at some of the criteria later. So we came up with these areas. Again, at lower levels, I think even at lower levels, things like peer assessment are a really useful tool. It does take some time to set up. But getting students familiar with what exactly is expected of them, what criteria they will be marked on, can help them have a greater awareness of their own writing. So self-assessment. Then once that is sort of set up and quite routine, moving on to peer assessment. So getting students to assess one another's work and do that in groups, do it as part of homework. Obviously, teacher feedback, and we have to decide quite carefully on what kind of feedback we are giving. Somebody mentioned spelling. It depends what your focus is, really. I think spelling is tested, if we're talking about reading and writing, spelling is tested in various other areas of the exam. So maybe not such a great focus on spelling or grammar per se in the writing if we're looking at more of a communicative approach. But again, that's completely up to you. A learning diary is another option, which we've had. Very interesting feedback from teachers on using a learning diary. And what do we mean by that? Maybe keeping a sort of portfolio of the writing that they do. And again, this all feeds in with self-assessment and peer assessment. So as students become more aware of what their strengths and their weaknesses are, keeping a track of that so that they have a sort of visual record of what they used to find difficult, what they've done to improve that, how they have then improved that. I think can all be very useful, even at these lower levels. Motivation, I think, is also very important when it comes to writing. Any ideas in the chat box on keeping or getting your students motivated and keeping them motivated when it comes to writing? Ideas in the chat box? Real life tasks as far as possible, yes. Again, trickier down at these at lower levels, perhaps. Yes, very clear goals, letting them know, you know, the positive effects of having English in the future. Stories, nice. Games, definitely. Doing well in the exam should be the only motivation they need. Anything else? What about ways to make writing more engaging and more motivating for our students? Horror stories, yeah, might have to be a bit careful with some of our younger learners. Role playing, and yes, teachers' feedback with positive. And I think we spoke briefly about feedback earlier. One thing to really bear in mind with feedback is there should be as much positive as negative feedback. I think it's very important in feedback to recognize what students are doing well, make the students aware of what they are doing well in, instead of, you know, lots of red pen or green pen or blue pen, depending on what color pen you use. I think making sure that we maintain that balance between what they are doing very well and what needs improving is important when we're giving feedback. And using the criteria as much as possible in class can really help support that and help develop students' awareness and knowledge of what they're doing well in and where they need to improve. One really nice way to maybe get students more engaged, more motivated in a piece of writing is using something like Padlet. I think the idea of collaborative writing can be quite difficult face-to-face. It can take quite a lot of work, and if everybody's writing really slowly, it can all get quite complicated. But I think one of the advantages of the last year, it has opened up the possibilities of the lots of new online tools and platforms, or online tools and platforms that existed before, but we were forced into using, how they can help build on what we were doing. And I think for motivation and engagement in writing, using something like Padlet to work through a writing task can work really nicely. So we're in A2 Key for Schools. We have the part 6, which is normally a short note or letter to a friend with 3 content points. We haven't got time to look at that today. We're going to look at the new part, the part 7. So in this part of the exam, the students get these 3 pictures, and they need to write the story as shown in the pictures, writing 35 words or more. A nice way we could use Padlet for this is for brainstorming vocabulary before we even start. So if we have a look at the pictures again, sorry, I have 2 screens. I have to look over one screen. That's why I keep going like this.
George?
Oh, hello, Victoria.
Sorry.
Everything okay now?
I hope so, yes.
Yes? Good. Well, we are here. Tell us about this slide, Victoria. Using Padlet for writing or helping build on writing a story.
Yeah, we can use Padlet to help our students practice different expressions. In this case, with picnic, but it can be used to share ideas for the story.
Lovely. Sorry, I've got a bit of a complicated situation going on with my screens. My normal camera isn't working, so scaffolding. What do we mean by scaffolding, Victoria?
Yeah, giving support to our students. So maybe dividing the task into different stages, adding extra support so our students can little by little develop their skills and feel more comfortable in this process.
Exactly. And scaffolding, I think the best way to approach with nearly all, you start with the end point, start with what they are required to do in the exam, what they're required to produce in the exam, and think about all of the skills that have gone into that. So start with the finished product and move backwards, providing as much support as possible, and you are gradually taking the support away, like scaffolding. Like scaffolding for a building as they move towards getting the task done. And just quickly, somebody said, was these taken from a book? That yes, the story task was taken straight from the A2 Key for Schools Teacher's Handbook. And as I said, we haven't got long enough today to look at every part of the exam, but all the information you need on A2 Key for Schools is available in that teacher's handbook. There's a lot of very useful information in there as well. So a nice way to build up and to scaffold students towards writing a story, Victoria?
Yeah, we have this idea. You can give your students different titles for different stories, and then they can choose the one they like the most, and you can have a brainstorming, a bit of brainstorming session in which students are sharing ideas about what they think the content of the story will be, and putting them together as a group. Then they can choose one of the titles, draw some pictures telling the story, put in the pictures, and then they can give those pictures to another group of students, and then they will have to write the story based on the pictures. And then they can compare ideas and see what they thought the story was going to be about and what the other group thought in the end that the story was about.
It is like somebody mentioned earlier, Victoria, we were asking about, ways to motivate and engage students, and somebody did mention horror stories. So, so this has all come out very nicely. Another nice way, if you're using picture support, is put them into groups, either groups of a similar level or groups of a mixture of levels, and get them working on the stories in groups. You could even have a picture 1 group, picture 2 group, picture 3 group, get them all to write their own text for that story, then rearrange and remix and see how many combinations you can get. Does that make sense, Victoria? Getting different students writing each of theirs is a really nice way to add a bit more fun to a writing task, I think. Further things we can do, scaffolding-wise, for language, etc., Victoria?
Yeah, we can give the students the sentences. We can divide them into 2 halves, and then they will have to match the 2 halves and put the sentences in order to tell the story.
Excellent, sorry. Reading. Tell us about reading, Victoria. What do we have to say?
What, sorry, George?
No, what do we have to say about reading?
Yeah, we have to say that we need to start building up our students' reading skills. At this level, it's going to be mainly careful reading, but we can start introducing other sub-skills. But there are some aspects that we think are very important when developing reading skills, and we're going to see them on the next slide.
And just quickly, yes, in the chat box, sample papers and handbook for teachers, you can get them from your centres, or you can download them all for free from our website.
I think we even have the QR code. Yeah.
We have a QR code a bit later.
Yeah, a bit later.
Yeah. Lovely. So, a big combination of all of these, Victoria. Where would you start?
Prediction.
Okay, all right, at 12 o'clock, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we can ask our students to try and predict what the story will be about. We can do that using the title of the story or the title of the text. We can also use a visual input, and they can also use their background information on the topic.
Text types, not so much. I mean, yeah, even at A2, it's going to be different, the kind of language or the approach that they take to the short message or the email as to a story. We're only really thinking about these 2 text types at the moment. But from a reading point of view, as we'll see in the part 1, we try to use sort of real life sources as much as possible, so the little signs and notices, and the difference between that and a short descriptive text and a story. Again, a lot of the practice, well, the best way to practice this is just to expose your students to as many of these text types as possible. Text structure sort of comes out of that again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are going to start being introduced to different text types at a very basic level, but it is good that they start, becoming familiar with the structure of different texts.
Different sub-skills of reading. As Victoria said, nearly all of the reading that we test today too is sort of reading for detail and careful reading. Gist and more global reading begins to come in more at B1, but there are ways to practice even with our younger students. We did a session last week for young learners looking at if we were differentiating a task. For our stronger students, we could give them, I think it was a dialogue, wasn't it? The students get one half of the dialogue and then a variety of options. And a really nice way for your stronger students, perhaps, would be to give them a few questions about the dialogue and time them. Say you've got 30 seconds to find out who are these people, where are they, what did they do yesterday, for example. And as we move up the levels, these sub-skills become more and more important for reading, especially at B2 onwards. And interestingly, it's one of the skills that students tend to not do so well at as they get higher. They tend to do much better in their speaking and their writing and their grammar, but reading normally comes pretty close to the bottom of the pile. So getting them used to these different approaches to reading as early as early as possible, I think can be very useful. And lastly, vocabulary, which is an ongoing journey, I think. Really. Do you have anything to say about vocabulary, Victoria?
No, maybe at these stages we're maybe going to focus more on synonyms, opposites, and then increase the complexity and think about a range of vocabulary and other aspects related to vocabulary at a high level.
Excellent. So we'll have a quick look at that part 1 that I mentioned earlier. Here are 6 examples taken from part 1 A2 key for schools and B1 preliminary for schools. So a little bit of interaction with the chat box, which we always love. Which 3 of these are A2? Okay, so if you can type in the chat box, which 3 of these do you think are taken from A2? C, D, and F. Ooh, oh, yeah. This has happened before, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, CDF, ACD, BCF, CDF. Interesting. We haven't given you very much time to do this, and I think we're mainly right. But a lot of people going for C. Why do people always go for the C, Victoria?
Yeah, because it looks, it is short, but it is short, but it is complex.
Quite complex. No groups of 4 or more, unless by previous arrangement. That's definitely moving up to B1. So here are the answers. It was A, D, and F are all taken from A2. The differences here, again, we've been through C. What takes that up into a B1? In E, actors urgently required by the director. It's going a bit above A2 vocab-wise, I would say. Previous experience welcome, but not essential.
Yeah,
a few layers of meaning.
Complex.
Exactly. Another interesting point here, hopefully you can see here, there's kind of differences between A2 key and A2 key for schools. Language and level-wise, they are exactly the same. They've been through all of the same statistical analysis, and all of the way we put the exams together is exactly the same. The only difference is, Victoria?
The topics. The topics are chosen so that they are more familiar. They are students at school who are at school can do the test and are not limited by the topics.
Exactly. I mean, I think F probably could feature in either of them, but A is a little bit more adult, I would say, than your sort of a typical 11, 12, 13-year-old experience. So good ways to practice for this, Victoria?
Well, we can try and use as much authentic material as we can find with notices, signs, instructions, emails, messages, notes, and postcards. And we can even ask our students to create the notices and the signs maybe that they can see in the schools, in the classrooms. So receptive and also productive to prepare for this part of the exam.
Exactly, you can have lots of fun making notices. I think in class, especially for our more artistically minded students. So moving on to prediction and predicting content. Why is this important? Generally, let alone in an exam context, Victoria?
Well, if you have some time to predict what is going to happen, you are better prepared to identify the information that you need, and better prepared in general to deal with the task. So, for this reason, it is relevant for the exam situation, but in general, it is always better to be able to predict what is going to happen.
Exactly. And if we get them used to doing this in the reading, they will in the listening as well. Well, that's really important. A bit of practice with prediction and listening can help enormously, I think. So ways we could prepare for this, Victoria?
Well, something like this, you can give them the title of the text and starting at a new school, and then give them different chunks of language, and they can identify the ones that may appear in the text.
So, just to see who is still awake, which of these would you expect to find in a text called Starting at a New School? And actually, I hadn't thought about this before, Victoria, but this is kind of just reading backwards, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and getting them used to identifying these, then finding them in the text, I think can help them overall with their reading skills. First week, Elena, yeah, probably.
Lots more homework.
Yeah. Exactly, Victoria. That is what we are trying to do here. And lead in tasks to dealing with a reading in class, lead out tasks. This is specifically looking at that part 3, so it's a slightly longer text, but best friend now, exactly. Beautiful dresses. Did you wear beautiful dresses at school, Victoria?
Yes, sometimes.
Yeah? No. Okay. So did I, but only in one play. Yes. Okay, so it's very easy. You take the text that you're working with, pull some language out of it, throw some other language into, a little bit of distraction, and again, just get them warming up, activating that schemata, thinking about the kind of language, the kind of chunks that they'll be looking at, although they will encounter in the text. At a more basic level, Victoria, and I mean we're focusing more on use of English here, but it all comes together in A2 Key for Schools.
Yes, it is a good idea to start giving our students practice in looking at what comes before and comes after the gap, so that they can identify the word that is necessary here. So before we were looking at a more global level, prediction at a more global level, and here is more specific.
Exactly. And again, we're practicing their paraphrasing abilities, very low level, but it will all be useful when they end up in B2 first and have that horrible sentence transformation. It's very easy to set up and very easy to get your students doing in class. Right, moving on to listening. What do you want to say about listening, Victoria?
I think we are going to start with some can-do statements.
We are. What are can-do statements?
Is it a question for me?
It's a question for you, yes.
They are descriptors of the ability that is expected of candidates at different levels of ability. So it is based on the Common European Framework of Reference, the CFR, but we also include some can-do statements in our handbooks.
Yeah, so the CFR, the holy grail of language learning and teaching, is a pretty enormous document. I think it's about 300 pages long, something like that. Last PDF I downloaded. Yeah. And it is made up of these can-do statements. What students are expected to do at a given level within a given topic. And our can-do statements, as Victoria said, are all available in the teacher's handbooks. They're slightly different. They are very closely based on the CFR. Some of them differ very slightly, and we've had to synthesize some can-do statements, into because there are so many in the CFR. And I can't read your name. Maybe Catherine?
Svetlana?
I'm not sure.
Svetlana, I think it is.
Oh, sorry. Victoria studied Russian and I didn't. So which two of these are A2?
2 and 4. I think everyone
2 and 3.
agrees.
2 and 4, everyone agrees. Oh, interesting. 3 and 2. Oh, I like having a bit of disagreement in the chat box. It always keeps things interesting. 2 and 3. 1. Okay, so yes, it was 2 and 3. Can understand enough to be able to meet needs of a concrete type with the provision provided. Speech is clearly and slowly articulated. And again, I know why 4 was tempting. It's a bit shorter, but it's a step up again. Understand the main points of clear speech on familiar matters is above 3. So again, can understand phrases and expressions related to immediate priority. Again, provided the speech is clearly and slowly articulated. So it's a much more immediate, concrete sort of need and relationship that an A2 learner has with what's going on around them, I would say. Another question for all of you. What makes listening in another language difficult? Ideas in the chat box?
Unknown word.
Yeah,
Accent.
I mean, vocabulary, definitely. Accents. Oh, connected speech, very nice, Olga. Idioms, vocabulary, speed. Yeah, connected speech, definitely. Pronunciation. Numbers. Yeah, numbers are, I know. Especially long numbers, because you're doing it bit by bit. Like, Connected speech, lack of practice. Lack of practice, interesting. I think connected speech and contractions and things definitely, and even at A2. I mean, I worked in Cambridge for a few years on creating some of the exams before I came to Spain. And I've been along to quite a few recording studios where we record the things for our exams. And even at A2, we ask the actors to speak naturally, slowly, but naturally. So we are not, nor do we ever speak like that. So there will be connected speech, there will be contractions, and they do need a lot of practice with this, I think. We had some other ones. Concentration and attention. Are you concentrating, Victoria? Yes. Level of interest. Again, our listening exams are short, even up at proficiency. I think it's only 35 minutes because we are aware of it's very tiring doing a listening exam. You need to be hyper concentrated, hyper aware, and you've got to be taking all the input and everything else. So they are short. They do need practice, but concentration and attention can be very big issues, I think. Processing time needed. Again, this is why I think working a lot on prediction and students being ready for what they need to be listening for as much as possible. Complexity of the content, and we've spoken about this, vocabulary, etc. as well. Obviously at A2, we will only be testing A2 and a little bit of B1. Background knowledge, hopefully we do try as far as possible in all of our exams to ensure that the input the input text doesn't need any extra background knowledge necessarily to answer anything, and none of the questions should need any background knowledge. It should be as clear linguistically as possible. Does that make sense, Victoria?
It does.
Yeah. Do you want to do the last 3?
Yeah. Also understanding the context, you know that there is a very short rubric giving some context about the communicative situation, the amount of visual support available, and also identifying the speaker's purpose is also very important to understand.
It definitely helps. Pronunciation features. The worst or the biggest one, I think, is that it's completely different from what they expect. If they've never heard a particular accent before, that can be very discouraging, I think, maybe. Definitely the speed of the speech, the accent. Intonation, again, at A2, we will not be focusing on intonation. I mean, but if it's a question, if we're asking a question, but beyond that, there'll be very little sort of meaning within the intonation that comes in much, much higher up. Stress, I do think, is important. identifying stress and then being able to replicate that when they're speaking, I think. The next one, Victoria.
Use of fillers, very, very well timed, George. And use of fillers, also self-correction by the speaker, repetition as well, can be aspects that can add to the complexity of the listening material.
Definitely. So how do we help? How can we help students with their listening skills, Victoria, especially at this lower level? I think sort of B2 and upwards, you have so much authentic material available. But at lower levels, things that we need to bear in mind, well, at all levels, I think. Yes,
at all levels. There are things that we can do in general to help with listening. And then there are some specific preparation tasks that we can do before listening. And then also some ideas that we can use during the listening process.
So beforehand, and again, we've mentioned it several times here, prediction is super important and will help enormously within the exam context. So you'll hear two friends talking about a book they've read. They agree that it has lots of action, realistic characters, an unexpected ending. How much time do they get? Well, it depends on the part, doesn't it? There is always built-in reading and preparation time before the first audio is played, and again before the second audio is played, and it's getting students engaging with the material as much as possible within that time.
Making them aware of the importance of this time, because very often I used to see my students staring at the ceiling, in the preparation time, and it was like, no, please, take some paper.
Staring out the window, when's the audio going to start? I think it's really, really easy and useful activity in class to take the tasks before you even go near the audio and just get them in little groups brainstorming. What should we be listening for here? Just a vocab brainstorm. I think maybe a couple of little chunks of language, depending on your students. It's super easy to do, and hopefully it will become, it will become a natural thing that they do once they do get to the exam content. The part one for key and for preliminary has a lot of visual support. So prediction here, Victoria?
Looking at the different pictures and trying to identify some vocabulary there, or think about what is going on in the different pictures. But as you said, the visual input is going to help them.
It will help them, and they have to know, as you all know. Someone's talking about pre-teaching. When you're scaffolding and building up towards the task, pre-teaching key vocab is a great way to help support our students. But get them looking at these pictures. You know that all of those options will be mentioned. Only one of them will be correct. So what's Julia going to do tonight? Well, I was feeling tired, but then I was invited to a disco, but then I thought, no, I'll just do some homework. Students got to be ready to be, got to know what they're listening out for and know about the little bits and chunks of language that will make an answer right or make an answer wrong. And that's where they need to focus in on. They know what areas, they know what sort of vocab they'll be listening to. They know that in part 2, 3 o'clock, 3:30, and 2:30 will all be mentioned, but it's listening out for those little chunks which make an answer right or make an answer wrong.
And this can also be a follow-up activity, right? Looking at the question again and identifying the distractors and understanding why they were distractors and not a correct answer.
Exactly. So get the students to look at the question, look at the pictures, talk about what they can see in the pictures, what the people in the recording are likely to be talking about, and try and make some predictions on which is the correct answer. It adds an element of fun, a bit of competition, increases motivation, hopefully. And before or after the task, using the tape script. Tape scripts are such a wonderful resource, I think, in lots of different ways. You can use it. You could use it beforehand if you were looking at a task and you split it across 3 or 4 lessons. You could even read the dialogue or read whatever the tape script says to them one class and then deal with the actual task 2 classes later, for example. Other ways to help, Victoria?
Listen again. You know that in our exams, students always listen twice, but maybe this second time you can modify it a bit, maybe pausing so that they can understand where the distractors are, for example, or the correct answer. Then helping them to pick out key information. They may get very anxious because they think they need to understand everything. So I think that it is something that you should tell them, that they need to understand enough, that there is something going on that they don't need to understand.
And like when A2 students are reading, sometimes they get to a word they don't know, and then it blocks them. Listening, they've got to get used to not understanding everything. They don't need to. They've got to be able to zone in and pick out the relevant information. And hopefully all of this will help build their confidence overall. As I said, I think listening, speaking as well, but for different reasons, I think listening is probably one of the most nerve-wracking exams, because it's gone. The recording's there and it's gone. So I think helping our students, be as confident and ready as possible will be very helpful for them. Some practice activities. If you go to our website, the Learning English section, you can see here you can filter by the skill that you're practicing on, the level that you want, and how much time. There's a lot of activities available there. Also, A2 exam lift. We're doing a session later on this afternoon at resources from A2 to B2. But if you're not coming to that, look at A2 Key for Schools exam lift. It's a mobile-based app. Loads of practice activities on that. It's a really cool resource. I think it came out about a year ago. But we've had very, very positive feedback from all of our teachers on that. I don't know whether learning dialogues by heart is very useful. Really, it depends. It depends on what you're trying to practice, I suppose. What do you think, Victoria?
I think dialogues are great to practice intonation and to practice this interaction. I'm not sure about learning them by heart. Maybe practicing them, trying to use keywords instead of the whole question and answer could be maybe a bit more useful.
Yeah, and I think engaging with the dialogues and the tasks after you've done it is also very useful. Another way to use the tape script, getting students familiar with the way the tasks are laid out. So once you've done the task, get them to go back, underline the language that says this is the right answer, underline the language which shows that the distractors, the incorrect options, are incorrect. You can even get them rewriting little bits to change the answer. That's quite a fun way to really stretch out the session and use your tape scripts. Right, we've got just under 15 minutes to have a quick look at the speaking. So, Victoria, A2 Key for Schools speaking.
Yes. It has in 2020 there was a revision, and we have this new task in part 2, which is a part in which students are going to have a conversation. They will talk about something that is very familiar to them, in this case, hobbies, and they will be expressing their opinions.
Exactly. The part 1, which is very similar in all of our speaking tests, obviously changing by level, is the sort of interview stage. So questions from examiner to candidate, again, should not be challenging at all. And the idea of that is to try and get them used to being in an exam situation, hopefully relax them a little bit, calm them down before a slightly more challenging part. So this part 2, as Victoria said, it started last year. And we want to try and elicit as natural an interaction between the students as possible. A really nice way to help prepare for this, Victoria.
We can get our students to come up with words, so positive adjectives, negative adjectives that they can associate with some of the activities, and then we can ask them to include those in their conversation.
Exactly. It's giving them the support, give them the language to use whilst they're practicing. Again, it's this idea of scaffolding, giving them as much support as possible and taking it away stage by stage as they get more comfortable with the tasks. So another really nice way, we're going to do this, we've just got time, is to show them what happens in the exam. There are quite a few videos available on YouTube of our speaking exams. Watch the video with your students. I would always tell them to choose one candidate. Okay, it's always easier. Choose one candidate and think about the positive aspects that could be improved. Then you can share your opinion as a whole class activity. Then you can give them extra feedback. You can get students to do this in pairs, in groups of 3, groups of 4. And again, it's giving them an idea of what will happen on exam day. Should hopefully make it less of a shock when the day comes. So we're going to have a quick watch of Luca and Federica, 2 Italian candidates, just to give you an idea, and we'll have a look at the speakers, the examiner's comments afterwards before we wrap up. Okay, so...
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I have your mark sheets, please? Thank you. I'm Sandra, and this is Kerry. What's your name?
My name is Luca.
And what's your name?
Federica.
How old are you?
I'm 13.
Where do you live?
I live in Buccinasco, a small town near Milano.
Thank you. How old are you, Luca?
I'm 13.
Where do you live?
I live in Buccinasco.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about school. Luca, what subject do you like best?
My favorite subject is English because I very like all the languages, but English is the best because I very like America.
What clothes do you wear to school?
I wear t-shirt and jeans.
Federica, what time do you finish school?
At 15:15. No, no. At
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I have your mark sheets, please? Thank you. I'm Sandra, and this is Kerry. What's your name?
My name is Luca.
And what's your name?
Federica.
How old are you?
I'm 13.
Where do you live?
I live in Buccinasco, a small town near Milano.
Thank you. How old are you, Luca?
I'm 13.
Where do you live?
I live in Buccinasco.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about school. Luca, what subject do you like best?
My favorite subject is English because I very like all the languages, but English is the best because I very like America.
What clothes do you wear to school?
I wear t-shirt and jeans.
Federica, what time do you finish school?
At 15:15. No, no.
Do you finish school at 4 o'clock?
No, at 2:15.
What do you eat after school?
I eat pasta or meat or fish.
Now, Luca, please tell me something about the homework you have to do.
All the day I have to do my homework, and there are a lot of homework about math, Italian and English.
Do you get a lot of homework every day?
Yes.
Now let's talk about home. Federica, who do you live with?
I live with my mom, my dad, and my 2 sisters.
How many bedrooms are there in your house?
2. One of my parents, and one for me and my sisters.
Luca, where do you watch TV at home?
I watch TV in my camera,
What's your favorite room in your house?
my bedroom.
Federica, please tell me what you like doing at home.
I like listen music, sing, and watch TV.
Do you like cooking?
No, not at all.
Now, in this part of the test, you're going to talk together. Here are some pictures that show different hobbies. Do you like these different hobbies? Say why or why not. I'll say that again. Do you like these different hobbies? Say why or why not. All right, now talk together.
I like watch TV and read the books. And you like read books?
No, I prefer watch TV. And you, do you like play football?
No, because I don't like play with balls. And you like sing or play instruments?
No, it's difficult for me. I prefer play football.
And watch TV?
Yes, I very like it because there are a lot of interesting documentary. And do you like read book?
Yes.
Luca, do you think playing football is fun?
Yes, because there are a lot of friends to talk after the match.
Do you think playing an instrument is difficult?
Yes, I think it's very difficult.
Why?
Because there are a lot of things to apprehend and study.
Federica, do you think playing computer games is boring?
No, I like it
Why
because a lot of these are good and funny.
Do you think reading is interesting?
Yes, because I like read books and I like adventures book.
So Luca, which of these hobbies do you like best?
I prefer watch TV because a lot of the time I watch TV with my sister or my family.
And Federica, which of these hobbies do you like best?
Watch TV or read books.
Okay, thank you. Can I have the booklet? Now, do you prefer to spend your free time alone or with other people, Federica?
Can you hear me?
Perfect. Sorry, we don't have time to watch the whole video. That gives you an idea of what they are expected to do in the speaking exam if you haven't already. You can get lots of these. Lots of these are available on our YouTube channel, and you can download the examiner's comments and have a look at how they did. Here are the 4 criteria that we use: grammar and vocabulary, pronunciation, interactive communication, and global achievement. So the global achievement is how well they generally managed the whole experience, and the others sort of speak for themselves, I think. Very important to point out, pronunciation, not even at C2 do we ever talk about accent. We talk about intelligibility. So how clearly candidates can produce and pronounce words, and how easy they are to understand, really. So these 2, as you probably guessed, these are quite strong candidates. So don't scare your students with this, but both of them did fairly well. I think Federica was maybe slightly stronger than Luca, only slightly. But their grammar and vocab is easily A2. The way our criteria works is it's based on a scale of 0 to 5, and a 3 is at level. Okay, so all of the descriptors in a 3 at A2. No, wait. Yeah, a 3 at A2 will be A2. A 5 at A2 will be the same as a 3 at B1. Okay, so all of our criteria overlap and interlock. So then if they share characteristics of a 5 and a 3, they'll get a 4. So we'll have a look at the scores that they got, but here are the examiner's comments. And if you look at this alongside the criteria, which is all available in the handbook, you can see how the examiners quote the criteria, give an example. So yeah, these were both strong candidates. These are more getting up into B1 now. I would say, as I said, so a 5 at A2 is a 3 at B1. Yeah, is that the right way around? Yes, it is. Yes. Okay, so 5 at A2 is basically B1. They were both fairly strong. One very sweet thing that Federica does, and please encourage your students to try and avoid this, is that question about what time do you finish school? And she can't remember what time it is. And the examiner even says, do you finish school at 4 o'clock? She's like, no. Examiners really don't mind very much about the truth. They want your English. Okay, so if if your students aren't sure what to say, just say something and they'll be okay. And that's pretty much all we have time for. It's very difficult to do a whole paper in an hour, but I hope what we looked at today was useful. Victoria and I have done lots of other sessions, which again are available on our YouTube channel, looking at other levels and A2 in more detail. There's one on A2 receptive skills, I think, which might be quite useful. Goes a little bit deeper into the reading and the listening. And yeah, we have to finish, otherwise we're going to be kicked out by Julia. This section of our website, Supporting Every Teacher, lots of information and resources, etc., available for you there. And just to finish off, if it hasn't been talked about before, Victoria?
Yeah, your new English classroom is a new section on our website, launched in September, but continuously updated. Please check it out. Lots of resources, lesson plans, guides. So please have a look at it.
And it was all created over last summer. So as Victoria said, with the COVID situation in mind. So please check that out as well. It's very useful. Thank you all very much. Sorry, we've gone slightly over time, Julia. And we'll see you in an hour, I think.
That's right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, George, for this great session. Wonderful introduction to A2 key prelim or A2 key for schools. So thanks. Now it's time to talk about pitfalls. Claire Barnes, Cambridge Assessment English presenter. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Julia. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. I've got unstable internet connection, that's why I cannot use my camera, but I hope you can hear me well.
Oh, I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, I can see you, and I've just uploaded your slides.
I can see that.
Great.
Okay,
Great.
and I just noticed I can adjust my sound. That's very interesting. I'm not sure why I want to do. No, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. That's me. I'm sorry. I didn't scale, and I'm sorry.
So
dear.
we need to find the first slide, right? Or just a second.
I'm not sure. Yes, I'm very sorry. Oh dear, well, it was not a clever start, was it? And it says I have an unstable internet connection as well. Yoo-hoo! There we go. Fabulous. Okay. Right, as I have an unstable internet connection, thanks to Deutsche Telekom, because in Germany efficiency is not top of the list, I may have to close the video, shut the video off at some point. Hello, people. Hi there, Angelica. How are you? Long time no see. Okay, now let me just figure out exactly how I move these things on. Oh, there we were. Right. So this is what we're going to do today. Well, this is the plan anyway. Okay. Remember, I don't read my slides because you can. And I am looking to get responses from as many of you as possible. Okay. And I'm now also not looking at the right screen. I've got two screens going. Principally because the one I'm talking to you and the other one I'm reading, just to remind myself what I'm doing. Okay, right, as they say. So you've seen this before, yeah. It was mentioned earlier in the day, but I want to do a little bit more with it. This is the new collaborative Key and Key for Schools speaking task. So this is where they have to talk to each other, and they basically have to answer this question: do you like these different places to eat? Yes or no. Say why not, and so on and so forth. Now, in the chat box, what kind of problems do your A2 Key students have, or what kind of problems do you think your A2 Key students will have with this particular task? Please, in the chat box, what kind of problems do you think they will have? They're too shy. Oh dear. Yeah. Lack of idea is always a bit of a thing. Well, yes, but I mean, you know, I think the pictures are fairly clear, and as places to eat. Yeah. Okay. Grammar. Remember, if they the problem is not so much that they have to say everything, you know, 100% accurately in beautiful, fabulous, fantastic English, because that's the best way to fail exams, isn't it? It's about actually having something to say and being able to interact with their partner. Okay, so all you teachers out there who are terrorizing your students saying, oh, but that's incorrect. No. Come on, it's A2. Let's try not to worry about them. Yeah. Okay. Word order in making questions. Why would they need to make questions is my answer to that. Lack of life experience, but you know, A2 Key, they're supposed to be teenagers, and one has to assume that they have had barbecues before now. They've been on a picnic, they've been to a restaurant, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Do they have to connect with the pictures particularly logically, or do they just have to say, picnics? Yes. Now, I like going on picnics because you get into the forest and because they are fabulous. And the other one might say, oh, well, I don't like picnics because there are too many mosquitoes. Yeah, there's no great logic required. Essentially, the pictures are only connected by virtue of the fact that they're talking about the same type of thing. Okay, let me move on here. Okay, so this is the follow-up question. Yeah, so after the candidates have talked to each other, have told each other what they like and do not like and why, and so on and so forth, the interlocutor will ask them each one of these questions. Yeah. Now, in the chat box, what is the focus of these questions? What is the focus of these questions? Svetlana says they don't know the introducing phrases. Why should they introduce? They should just say, I like picnics because. Right, well, I don't like picnics because. What is there to introduce? Okay. Is it asking the same thing again? Focus, please, on the questions. What is different about these questions? What is the one part of each question which is different? Look at the last word of each question. What is that last word? the last word of each question. Vocabulary. Adjectives, finally. Thank you. Adjectives, exactly. Okay, so your average teenager has about 2 adjectives. Yes, interesting and boring, or possibly 3 if you say nice. So now let's try and think of ways of sorting out some adjectives, shall we? Let's quickly brainstorm some adjectives. Okay, so if we look at the next picture, I've chosen a very pretty photograph for you, and I'd like you now in the chat box to fill the chat box with adjectives and no nice. Anyone writes nice, I will scream. You will not like it. Adjectives, please. What adjectives spring to mind when you look at this photograph in my chat box? Wow, thank you there, Tatiana. Glorious weather. Ooh, okay. It's crowded? Where is it crowded? Okay. Yeah. Gloomy. Are you looking at the same picture there? How is that gloomy? Okay. Right. You see, you've. I like that. Peaceful. That's nice. That's nice. Awesome. Okay. Although I'm rapidly getting tired of this word awesome, to be honest with you. It's becoming the new nice, isn't it? Hilarious. Okay. Not laughing, but whatever. Cozy. I wonder if we can say cozy about an outdoor event. It's a very good question. So atmospheric. Ooh. Right. So, okay. Are your students instantaneously going to be able to come up with this long list of fabulous adjectives? That would have been a yes or no. Are your students going to be able to? Of course not. Okay, right. So how can we help them? Some of them. I like that, Olga. An optimist, clearly. Yeah. Yes. What can we do to help them? Okay. And there are all sorts of things. So, for example, it doesn't matter whether you're in the classroom or whether they're at home and you're all online. Why can't we ask our students to work together to use dictionaries, online dictionaries, for example, to find new ways of talking about the same thing? Okay, so because I'm sure in their own languages they will have adjectives, yeah, and very possibly you have tried to teach them these adjectives, but you know what teenagers are like. And by allowing them to find new language and to check it all in a dictionary and to decide whether it is really applicable, you're involving them in the process, aren't you? Exactly. Right. So, and then the next thing to do is to provide them with some kind of scaffolding. So this is what George and Victoria were talking about earlier. Okay, scaffolding. To help your students produce more. Okay, so these are my suggestions about what your students can say about these pictures. Can you complete the sentences, any one of the sentences in the chat box? Yeah, I love having a picnic because it's great to be with fabulous people in the sunshine. I hate having a picnic because, you know, the forest is full of these horrible creepy crawlies and they get everywhere. Okay. Or what I like about picnics is that you can have fun together, is that you can share delicious food. Yeah. Okay, so you can use these, exactly, some kind of associations. You can use this kind of beginnings of sentences, if you will, to help your students produce more Exactly. Too far. It's too tiring. It's too everything. Yeah, I like that, Paulina. That is fabulous. Lovely. And I suspect that most of the teenage students that you have would be able to identify with that instantaneously. Yeah, very little Wi-Fi in the countryside. Never understood that. Yeah, come to Germany. There's not that much in the towns either. Okay, right. So, getting together with your family. Okay. Yeah, you can get them to work on antonyms. Absolutely. It's a vibrant time with the family. Okay. Not sure I've ever heard of vibrant time with the family. But again, that would be something for you and your students to explore. Olga just simply likes food. Excellent. So you don't care where the food is as long as there's food. Yes, wonderful. Super. Okay. Right. There's another one for you. Okay, and this time I'm not going to give you any sentence beginnings. Okay, so you had sentence beginnings for the last slide, you remember? I like, I hate, what I like about, what I don't like about. Okay, now I'm asking you to please one sentence in the chat box about eating in this place, which could be a cafeteria, it could be some kind of public cafe. One sentence. Okay, Tatiana, that noisy I would appreciate, but it's not quite a sentence. Tatiana's practicing on how to be a teenager. Come on, put it in a sentence, hey? So what I don't like about eating in canteens or cafeterias is that it can be very noisy. Absolutely. Oh, okay. Yeah. What I like about eating in cafeterias is that I can try European cuisine. Oh, lovely, Anna. Yes. Okay. So I like eating in cafeterias because you don't have to wash the dishes unless you run out of money. Yes. Yeah. I'm making you write this down. And frankly, not many of you are writing here. What I enjoy about eating delicious food. Thank you. What I like about cafes, they serve balanced food. Okay, if you think so. Whatever. Oh dear. Lovely. Fabulous. Fabulous. Okay. Yeah, people watching is a very bad habit, but it's wonderful, isn't it? Always enjoy that myself. Yes. Excellent. Excellent. You see, now you're beginning to really think about this and you're beginning to really produce some wonderful, wonderful sentences. My point here is that if you encourage your students to do this in the same way, and I mean by first writing down the sentence, either putting it through the chat box if you're online, or in a classroom, writing it down on paper or in their notebooks, then you're giving the students more and more practice in producing this kind of language, but also as they produce more language and the fact that they're writing it down also will give them a little bit more confidence. And that is what it's all about, isn't it? We know that teenagers, particularly low-level teenagers, tend to worry a little bit about what they can and cannot do. And that's, I think, very natural. Having teachers tell them that they can't do anything, of course, is not particularly helpful. But by attacking it the other way around, by giving them lots and lots of practice, you're adding confidence. Okay? Right. Now then, I'm going to move on. Okay. So, yeah. And this is basically what we're saying. Okay. So, would you agree with all of this, or do you think there are other things? I know George and Victoria talked a little bit about motivating students. You can spend time with your friend. Thank you, Annie. Dining out, you can do it spontaneously. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. That's a little difficult where I am at the moment because we're still in lockdown. The restaurants and cafeterias are all closed, but it's a good idea. Okay, so yeah, motivation is obviously a big thing. Yeah, is it? I'm sorry to hear that, Olga. I think we have a combination with our teenagers. We have a combination of not having the language, but also not really being very motivated. And I think as teachers, a lot of our work has got to be in finding ways to help our students with ideas, yeah, to give our students ideas, and possibly to move slightly away from, you know, some of the coursebook topics, because, well, if you're 13, 14, 15, do you think you would find the topics in the course books exciting, scintillating, boring? Does it make you want to write? Oh yes, that's wonderful. Let me just sit down and write 358,000 words. Or when you open the page of the course book, do you think, oh, good grief, shoot me now, not again? Okay. So I think one of the things we have to do is to try and get our students interested, to try and motivate them to also come up with different ideas. Exactly. Yeah, it is quite boring, isn't it? Okay. And as was mentioned earlier, we can also use Padlet. Okay. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, let me move on. Now, you've seen this story, yes? It's in the handbook, as you found out earlier. Now, you do exercises on the computers. Okay, right, good. And I am very happy to hear that somebody has found an interesting course book. I think a lot of it is also about how we as teachers manage to engage our students with the course book and with the lesson in itself, isn't it? Right, so we've got this picture story, right? Would you suggest this is exciting or boring? In the chat box, is this exciting or boring? Yeah, it's quite boring, isn't it? It's quite mundane. Okay, so let's try and figure it out. So you start by asking questions. Okay, who are these people? In the chat box, please. Who are these people? Don't be boring. Who are these people? A family is boring. Come on, we're going to try to be not boring. Who might these people be? Relatives, still family, still boring. Come on, who might these people be? They're pals. No, it's getting better. Okay, so yeah, absolutely, they could be friends. Okay, a celebrity family. Oh, okay, it's getting better. Secret agents. Oh, I like that. Lovely. Superheroes. Love that. Aliens. Exactly. Wonderful. Now we're beginning to think out of the box. Okay, so we need to try and elicit this kind of stuff from the students. Try and make it more exciting. And also by eliciting more from the students, you're actually giving them the story, aren't you? It's their story. It's not your story anymore. And that's also as it should be. Okay. Two maniacs. That's an interesting thought. Okay, right. Strangers meeting in somebody's kitchen. That's an interesting thought there, Julia. Okay, where are they? The park would be boring. Where are they? They're burglars. Yes, I like that. Nice thought. They're burglars. Okay. Okay, right. Fair enough. Some kind of holiday home stealing from the barn. In the country. Okay, the country is very big. Do you want to narrow it down? On another planet. Oh, I love that. Movie set. Ooh. Yeah, you see. There we go. So things become a little bit more interesting when you can do that, yeah? Okay. And then you can talk about all sorts of things. They're relaxing in the suburbs, in their dreams. Oh, that's another point, yes. Although I think I would go out and kill myself if that was going to be my dream, frankly. Surface of the moon. Yeah, I like that. Nice. Not aware that on the moon there are trees and lakes, but that's lovely. Let's not worry about the details, yes? Okay. We're going to have a look now at how you might use Padlet. And I know you saw one earlier, okay? And tomorrow I'm kind of hoping to do this live with you, okay? I created a Padlet earlier, okay? And you can see I've added some posts. Who are the people? What are they doing? Yeah, and so on and so forth. And I've also said adjectives, okay, to tie it back in with what we were talking about before. They went camping. I like that idea. And it's really easy. How many of you have not ever used Padlet? Okay, so put a plus or a thumbs up if in the chat box if you know Padlet, if you like Padlet, if you've used Padlet. Put never. Oh dear. Never. Yes. Okay. I'm getting quite a lot of nervous. I'm getting 1 or 2 excited pluses, which is great. That's lovely. Okay, so the thing about Padlet is it's free for a start. Anyone can register. You can change the scenery. You can see on this one I've added a photograph of people having picnics because I thought, well, that would be more in keeping. Okay, Julia has a very sensible question. Padlet, basically as a teacher you register and then you create a Padlet. It's very, very easy to do that. You just follow the instructions on the screen essentially, and then you have to share the Padlet with your group of students. You can share, you can change the settings, so you can make sure that comments and new posts are generally anonymous, which I think most teenagers would like, because if they know that you don't know who wrote what, then a lot of teenagers are going to be more motivated to actually write anything at all because they know you don't know what they've written. Okay. Yes, you can use it for individual classes. You can use it for all sorts of things. Yeah. Okay. Let me. It's basically Padlet.com. Okay. Padlet.com is basically where you would go and register. There we go, Padlet.com. And I'm hoping, if you're going to be with me tomorrow at the same time, I'm hoping that we're going to try our very own first Padlet live. Okay, wouldn't that be exciting? Okay, my point is that you can basically encourage your students to cooperate with you. You can use Padlet on a computer or on a mobile phone, and I think that's where, for many of us, that becomes really, really useful, even in the classroom, because okay, you know, back in the dark ages, you would have a big piece of paper and you would make a poster, and people would add to the poster, and that's great. Yeah, kids, fine, wonderful, but they get to the teenage sort of age range, you know, 13, 14, 15, and then they go, oh, seriously, she wants me to create a poster. Yes? Do you recognize your teenagers? And that's why giving them an opportunity to use their mobile phones can be quite motivating in itself and can generate an awful lot of ideas and language. If you click on the round circle there, people can add a new post, and you can then manage the whole thing, asking them for different language or different kinds of information. All right. So that's actually quite a useful thing. I like Padlet, and I'm finding it very, very useful in many different contexts in my teaching, and also in other things. Yeah. So let's move on, I hope. Okay. Why am I not moving on here? Ah, because I'm in the chat box. That's not good. There we go. Right. Nothing. Here you can see the story. Take a few seconds, read the story, and tell me in the chat box whether you enjoy it. So a smiley or a sad face. Or if you prefer, you can say, yay, interesting, or oh, boring. Okay. Yeah. It's not a long story. It really should not. Boring, but okay. Okay. I'm not sure what's okay about if it's boring, but okay, fair. It is rather boring, isn't it? Good linking. Yeah, there is that, of course, yes, but still quite a boring story, isn't it, really? So let's see what we can do with this story, yes? People have names. Yeah, they do, and they are mentioned, yes, And of course, aliens would have names as well, and so would spies, all sorts of things like that. Okay, right. Moving on. Okay, so now it's not exciting. I quite agree. So now, as a model, it's a good place to start, and I think it's important sometimes to give our students a model, isn't it? Underneath the story now, you can see a task which is asking you to choose the best title for this story. What is the best title for this story? Do you think it's swimming at the pool, picnic in winter, an afternoon in the park, eating with friends? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. It is about an afternoon in the park. Yeah, can't be swimming at the pool because in this case there's talk about a lake. It's a picnic, certainly, but it's not in winter because there was green and trees and all sorts of things. Eating with friends might be. It would depend on what you've decided about the 4 people in the pictures, but here it's very clearly Emma, Dan, and their mom and dad, so it's a family thing. The story is quite long. Yes, that's okay. What's your problem with that? Yeah. The instructions for this task say write at least 35 words, yes? And that's so that students or candidates who are stronger and who can write more quickly in an exam context, and we know that, you know, in any group of students, you have the strong students who are streets ahead, and you have the weaker students who struggle really to put their 35 words together. And so the idea is that now it says at least 35, which gives the stronger candidates the opportunity to show what they can really do, and gives them a better opportunity to achieve a higher grade. Okay, so that's one thing we're going to do with the model. We have a model, we've now given it a title. Okay, but we did think that that model was quite boring, but still we're going to use this model for the purpose of scaffolding to an extent. Okay, so now you've got 5 sentences, 5 beginnings, 5 endings. It was a sunny day, so they all sat on a blanket to eat their picnic. Yes? Do we think so? It was a sunny day, so Emma and Dan went for a swim in the lake. It's possible. Yeah. It was next to a big lake and they went to the park. After they finished eating, they went to the park. They put some sandwiches and fruit in a big bag, and then Emma and David went for a swim in the lake. Yeah. Okay. So, well done. Yes. And then they went, absolutely, absolutely. What is the object of this? If we think about it, we're looking at ways of linking beginnings and endings. Somebody mentioned a nice linking. You're using things like when and after, but it's important that our learners can understand how these things hang together. It was a sunny day, so they found a place to sit under a tree. It's not wrong, but it needs to be looked at in the context of the whole story. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting lots of people interacting with this task. Well done. Good for you. Yay. Okay. And it's good to play with any model story that you have. And okay, yes, there is a model story, or there are model stories in handbooks. There are model stories in your course books. But if you really want to interest and motivate your students, then you might want to look at things like transforming the story, making it more interesting, writing your own stories. It's not that difficult, is it really? Yeah. Okay. So having played with sentences, sentence structure, how sentences hang together, let's have a look at the next bit. Okay. This is where we can begin to get a little bit more creative. Okay. We've given you the beginnings of the same sentences. Yeah. Can you finish any one of them? Yeah, it was a sunny day. So the spies decided it was a good day for a picnic. Seems boring, doesn't it? So the spies thought they would go and spy on people having picnics in the park. It's more exciting. Can you choose? You decided to go outside. Well, fair enough. Yeah. Eleanor, thank you. It was a sunny day, so I decided to go outside. Well, that's a good thing. Did you decide to go anywhere specific? Did you decide to go outside with anybody else? Yeah, remember, we're trying to be more interesting. We're trying to motivate our students. What would your teenagers write at this point? Okay. Wow. Oh, you catch butterflies. That's different. They decided to put on new sunglasses. Also a possibility. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. You could also say it was a sunny day, so the vampires all moved into the basement. For example. Yes. Okay. Except we've got a they, so we might have to change some of the sentences. So if we think about sentence number 2, they put some sandwiches and fruit in a big bag, and then okay, and then what? They put some sandwiches and fruit in a big bag, and then went down the stairs into the cellar to escape the sunshine. Still thinking about my vampires there. You stayed at home. Ah, nice. How much? I'm not quite certain of your question there, Elizabeth. They didn't have any blood left. Good point, Olga. I like it. Okay. What about any other sentences? Mm. I loved it, love it. Rush to the forest singing cheerfully. Excellent. That's obviously not the vampires there, but there we go. Mm. Ooh. When the vampires got into the cellar, they found a little friend. Okay, right. Somebody's going into the park on their bike. Excellent. Difficult to carry food, and I suppose if it's a big backpack, that works. Yes. Okay. Well, if you're thinking about pre-writing, and here, obviously, Elizabeth, I'm looking at ways for you to develop your students' writing skills in terms of ideas and language and so on over a period of time in your classroom. So if you have your students for a whole academic year, then clearly you would start at very, very basic level, and then you would move on gradually to the point where they can be writing this without any scaffolding. Okay. They met some dwarves who were really hungry. Okay. Well, so that's also possible. Absolutely. You never know what you're going to meet in the forest or in the park. Okay. Anybody got any suggestions for yeah? When the family got there, they were attacked by a flock of sheep. For example. Yeah. It was next to a big lake. And the sheep were thirsty, so they went swimming. After they finished eating, now the question here, would that be the vampires or the sheep? They realized they forgot the cat. I like that. That's nice, Olga. Yeah, I wouldn't normally take a cat, so I think that has potential to become a very interesting story. Okay, yeah. They rented a yacht. Excellent, excellent. Super. Okay. So my point again is that you have lots and lots of opportunities to create ideas, to create stories, and you're still at the scaffolding stage. So scaffolding, basically, as we said, means helping the learners, helping the students to come up with the ideas that they need, and then also to be able to put those ideas into language. And are we going to do this kind of scaffolding once, or are we going to do this again and again and again and again and again? Could they write this new story in the exam? Why not? Is my question. I like that. To the Highlands. Ooh, okay. We are moving about the world. Again and again. Exactly. Does it have to be using exam tasks that you can find in Cambridge English preparation books? The grade could be low. Why would the grade be low exactly? Each time you're in the mood? Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Okay. You could also find your own pictures and put them in some kind of order and then get them to sort it out. You could also choose pictures and tell them, okay, arrange these pictures. You give them a collection of pictures, get them to choose 3, and then to put them in some kind of order and to tell the story. Yeah. For example, also be more than possible. Yeah. I'm not sure what this statement, this comment, the grade could be low, couldn't it? Yeah, I'm not sure what your point is there. Can you explain yourself more clearly? Yeah. Apparently not. Okay, have we done with this? Yes? Task requirements. What about task requirements? Task requirements basically say you will write a story. And you will write a story which includes all three pictures, or referring to all three pictures given. It does not say that you cannot be creative. Yeah, nice idea. You can do that, absolutely. Well, exactly, yes. The point is that, yes, of course you can write extra information. If it's going to add to the story, why not? But you shouldn't leave out any of the pictures. There should be clear reference to all three pictures for the A2 key story. But what you do with that, within those three pictures, is entirely up to you. As we said, you could see 4 people on the first picture, and the most natural or the first idea that most people would have would be, okay, it's a family. Fine. But these people could, as we've pointed out, very easily represent some friends. They could be colleagues in some way. They could be spies. I mean, spies have to live somewhere. At least one spy would have a kitchen, They could well be aliens trying to fit in to the way of life on planet Earth, because someone has said you must pretend to be normal. They could be zombies given the same kind of task, and so on and so forth. Yes. Yes. You can do that. They could be actors, absolutely. So it doesn't really matter what you do with the pictures as long as your story refers to the pictures. And my point is that there is no safe story. Okay? We have to, our job as teachers is to prepare the candidates for the exams, yes, but also to enable our students to think of English as a language of communication, to be able to talk about things, to be able to write about things in a non-exam context as well. Okay, yeah, add more characters, change the plot. Okay, certainly in the lesson you'd have more time and more resources and more ideas coming in. And I think the point is that during the lessons, if we encourage all of our students to have these ideas, if we give them lots and lots of practice, lots and lots of input, if we motivate them to use as many different adjectives and as much different language as possible, then when they get into the exam itself, a lot of students go and freeze for a little while, and then they start thinking about it. But because they've done a lot of practice, then obviously it's going to be a little easier for them. Yeah? This might be a next step. You might create this kind of template for them so that you can see here, really and truly, we have a lot of freedom now with this kind of template. Yeah. And I think even your weakest students would be able to produce a story based on those pictures using this kind of template. Yes. Yes, like I said, what happened yesterday, what will happen next, always a good thing as well. Okay, so yeah, feel free to write your own story in the chat box there. It was a lovely day, an awful day, a dreadful day, a fabulous day. Yeah, it could be so many different types of day. It was quite simply a free day, a school-free day. So, decided to go, whatever. Okay, so who decided? I decided, you decided, somebody else decided. the school principal decided, as I say, yeah, another boring day. Ah, that's a very promising story there, Olga. It was another boring day. So, while you're doing that in the chat box, can I raise another question? In your lessons, first of all, do you make your students write stories in your lessons, during your lessons? Yes or no? Do you make students write stories during your lessons? Or do you tell them to write their stories at home? Okay. A lot of people saying yes. Someone said no, at home. Oh, yes, of course. Do you mean unfortunately, Svetlana? I think it's important, isn't it, to allow the students time in our lessons to write. And my next question, never. Why not? Seriously, why not? My next question is going to be, do you get these people, your students, to write stories individually or together? Getting lots of individuals. Somebody saying in pairs. What? And as a class. Oh, interesting. Okay. What is the advantage of having your students work together? Thank you, Svetlana. Yay. Aim of the day achieved. Woohoo. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Together doesn't work in your classes. I'm sorry to hear that, Alicia. You must have some very strange classes. So, yeah, the point that we're making is that, yes, in pairs, first of all, yeah, the first thing that everyone thinks of, okay, weaker students can get help from the stronger students. This is very true. But what a lot of teachers don't think of is that in many cases, weaker students can also be the students having the ideas, don't you think? Yeah. But maybe the weaker students don't have as much language to translate the ideas into the story. So that's why having two people writing a story is actually a lot easier for both, because they're both giving input, maybe language input, maybe ideas, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And because quite simply writing stories together is so much more fun, isn't it? Yeah, because you can bounce ideas off each other. Yeah. Okay. Also, exactly, Victoria, exactly. And Svetlana. Also, at some point, as teachers, clearly we want to read what our students have written. And if you want to introduce your students to the idea of reading each other's stories and possibly asking them to look for things such as adjectives, how many different are they spelt correctly, or having them look at, okay, have I got whole sentences? Do I have verb forms consistent either in the present or the past? Yeah, this kind of thing. Students can help each other. Students can edit each other's work. And if it's a story that has been written by two or more people, if somebody, either you or another student, questions a piece of language in that story, then they just go, oh, it's him. Yeah, it's much easier to get them to work to edit each other's work and to notice errors and so on and so forth and begin to make things better. Alessia, yes. Somebody's saying their students don't like to listen. Oh yes, storytelling cubes, always useful. Some nice ideas coming out of that. Yeah. Yeah, Tatiana, that's a very good point that you've raised there. Some students do not like writing together. And I think at that point, it's up to us as teachers to say, okay, fine, whatever. Yeah, because I think it is too easy to encroach and to insist too much. If that person is happy writing their own story, fine, let them write their own story. That's not a problem, is it? Really and truly. Yeah. But yes, the spirit of competition is often helpful if you work in pairs, or if you get them to collaborate, or to wander around the room and to read other people's stories, and get them to also think of, okay, oh, that's a nice idea. Maybe I'll just borrow that idea, steal ideas from each other. Who cares what they do, as long as they get excited and enthusiastic and produce a story. And when we think as teachers, because we are teachers and you know what we're like, we always think in terms of, I have to give it a mark, I have to give it a grade. Is it at A2 key, am I going to expect 35 words or more in beautiful harmony, written in fabulously literary sentences? Or am I going to expect some errors? That was a question. You can put that in the chat box. My concern is that as teachers, we it's too easy for us to focus on the errors, and I think, and that's a problem. And the easiest way to demotivate your students and to make sure they never write anything ever again is by underlining every single error in the story. So let's try and hold back with that red pen, and let's try and first find lots of good things to say about the story. Yeah, start with content. Oh, what a good idea. I like the idea of aliens walking with umbrellas in the park in the sunshine. Or, things like this. Yeah. So first content, always. And I think you'll find this is the way that Cambridge Assessment English assesses writing of all kinds. First, content. Then, style, linkers, little bits and pieces, and finally, language. Not errors, language. We don't ever count errors, do we? Well, exactly. To err is to be a student. I quite agree with you. But on the other hand, making errors is good, because that means that we're going to get better. So yes, as teachers, we have to notice the errors that our students are making, and then undertake some kind of action to help them get it right the next time. Yeah. Okay. So start with content, move on, and give credit for good use of language. All right. So, and I think I'm kind of running out of time right now. Absolutely. Okay. If anyone has any questions, then as you remember, Julia was talking about the question box at the top of your screens. But as far as I'm concerned, I hope that I've tried to give you ways and means to motivate your students at A2 key level as far as speaking and writing is concerned, trying to give them ideas for what things to say, also ways of developing language, and so on and so forth. Yes, and I hope you have found it useful. Okay, If you have found it useful, come back tomorrow. And we will hope to be able to put to at least try this live Padlet. I'm quite excited about this live Padlet thing. Okay. So, thank you very much, people. Julia, back to you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Great presentation as always. Very, very interactive. I'm extremely happy to see all these responses in the chat box. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, dear participants, for active participation. So I'm absolutely sure that everybody found this presentation useful, and Claire, see you tomorrow with B1 preliminary. Sorry. Now it's time to share some best practice. Hello, Victoria.
Hello, Julia. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. So hope you can see me well, can hear me well.
Yes, we can see you, we can hear you. Thanks for joining us today. Dear friends, I would like to introduce Victoria Taranova, Assistant Director of Studies Language Link South, Cambridge CELTA, CELT-P, CELTAS Tutor, and Local Course Administrator, Authorized Exam Center RU053 in Rostov-on-Don. Victoria, I'm uploading your presentation. So this session is called Break with our expert, and we have prepared some fantastic teaching activities for you. Just a second.
Okay. Okay, dear friends. Yeah, as soon as so could you please?
Yes, I'm trying to find the first slide. I'm a little bit surprised.
Thank you very much for your help. Okay, so let's enjoy our break now. I hope that everything will be nice. Good. So, and to have some relaxation now, I have prepared some pictures for you. I hope you can see me. I hope you can hear me, and just react in the chat to show that you are with me. So, look at these pictures. What can you see in the pictures? What are the people doing? Just a couple of words. Good. Thank you very much. Yes, you can see me. Wonderful. Any ideas? Okay. Yes. Nice. Traveling. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes, you are right. The people are traveling. And what about you? Do you like traveling? Put a plus if you do. Minus if you don't. Good, wonderful. So thank you very much. Yeah, actually, when I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking about some messages with "we are under lockdown, can't travel, this is awful," and I have anticipated this problem, and I would like to invite you. Look, I would like to invite you to London. So we are in London now. So I am taking my umbrella with me. What are you taking with you? Could you please write some ideas in the chat? Okay. Okay, so this is, yes, thank you, Olga. This is a nice car, a wallet. This is great, and a camera. Wonderful. So imagine that we are walking along wonderful London streets. And what can we see in the streets? We can see a lot of street notices, a lot of information around, yeah? I have taken some pictures. Let's have a look at the pictures. Okay, quickly read these London street notices and then look at the sentences 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you have 30 seconds to write in which notice you can find the information from the sentences from 1 to 5. Let's do number 1 together. So birds may attack. So we quickly scan all the pictures. We can see a wonderful bird in picture E, yes, and some information that ravens may bite. Okay, so let's match 1 and E. Very good. So continue, 30 seconds. Good. Thank you. Nice. I hope you can read. Just if. Wonderful. Yes, I can see a lot of correct answers. Thank you very much. And I will demonstrate the answers now, so you can see all the answers. Thank you. Well, what was the reason why I decided to do this task with you. So I wanted to engage you by sharing some personal information. Yes, it is always useful to share some personal information with our students. They really like to learn some facts about their teachers. Yeah. Also, just I wanted to use some bright visuals again to engage you and to motivate. But the main aim was to show that we are actually preparing for reading part 1 of our A2 key exam. And so this particular task helps us to develop such exam strategy, which we call paraphrasing. I believe that it is very important to develop exam strategies to prepare our students for different exams. Because, for example, in this task, our students should understand that the same idea can be expressed in different words. And when they read, so they should think how this idea can be expressed in the task. Because sometimes what happens when I check my students' works, I can see that they quickly scan the text and they quickly scan the options, for example, and choose that one which includes the same, which has the same words. But usually this is a distractor, and so the answer is not correct. That is why they should be able to paraphrase. So they should be able to express their ideas in different words. This is useful not only for reading, but for writing and for speaking too, because very often it happens so that our students start speaking and then they forget. I am speaking about the speaking part of the test, and then they get stuck because they don't remember a word. Yeah, and the problem is that nobody can help. An interlocutor is not allowed to help so with the vocabulary. I mean, so the partner is not listening usually because they are also all just candidates are a bit nervous, and sometimes they don't listen to each other. That's why your students should be able to find words they know to express the idea they want to say. That's why, so this strategy, I find this strategy really, really useful. Okay, so let's continue. So we can see in this picture that people can go to the mountains, they can visit different cities, they can go to the seaside, and there are different types of tourism or holidays. Yeah. So I have a task for you. So let's use word wall. But I just here, yeah? Look, we have 3 categories: mountain tourism, city tourism, and beach tourism, and some ideas, some activities which you can do. Let's match the activities and the type of tourism. For example, to buy souvenirs, where would go? Mountain tourism, city tourism, or beach tourism? Okay, good, yeah. So for number 2, yeah, I believe yes. Yeah, so that's nice, that's nice. Okay, let's imagine that we have done the task, yeah, and so here we can see the correct answers. This task is, so I'm presenting this task not to show how I can use word wall, so that I'm an expert in word wall. No, all of us are experts nowadays in different online tools because we have to use all of them: word wall, Padlet, Kahoot, whatever. But here I would like to draw your attention to the vocabulary I am using in this task. A simple categorizing task. Well, you can see that I'm using some chunks of language, and this is something that all the speakers today have been speaking about. Yeah, so we should present our language, we should practice our language in ready-made chunks, because at low levels it really helps our students. And we have a wonderful resource, the word lists, yes, which is so word lists are provided by Cambridge, and they remind us which words our students should know. But when we present language, when we practice language, I prefer to do it in chunks, because I really believe in lexical approach, and I really believe that we store the language in our memory in meaningful chunks. And if we want to use these, if we want to say something, to produce something, it is easier to retrieve a chunk from our memory. For example, a lot of students know the word backpack, but as soon as we start we want to say something using the word backpack. We don't know which verb to use. Take, carry, hold, whatever. Yes, so, and this activity gives us a clear like phrase we can use without just thinking. Just, I don't like, for example, wearing heavy backpacks, but I like sleeping in tents when I go to the mountains. It is easier to produce some language. Okay, and for example, in this activity, which is taken from the exam paper, but I have adapted it a bit, yes, because I really believe that when we work online, we need a lot of visuals, a lot of visual support to compensate this lack of physical contact. Yeah. So, and when we speak about, when our students do this task, do you like these different holidays? It would be easier for them to say something using the ready-made phrases they know. But just don't please confuse this using ready-made phrases with learning something by heart, like learning texts by heart. No, it never works. Like learning, you can't be like fully prepared if you learn a text by heart. Your students should be able to use language, yeah, but so it is easier to operate chunks, not separate words. And also in this task, it might be useful to use paraphrasing. As soon as you don't know what to say, I don't know, or you want to paraphrase what the examiner asks, yeah, you can say, you can use something else. For example, do you think beach holidays are fun? Your students can say, yes, beach tourism is fine. I like, so I like swimming. I like building sandcastles. What else do we have? We have in this task, I like going jet skiing. So they will show that they can use the language in this task. And if they forget, if they don't remember, for example, the word hiking, so they know that they can use something they remember. If they're aware of this technique is paraphrasing, like, well, walking is fine. Yes, so I like walking because it's healthy, but I don't like wearing heavy backpacks. For example, how you can use it. And so to sum up, yeah, so this break, I would like to say something really important when we work with exam classes. I really believe that it is important to motivate our students. Usually students who are, could you please get back to my slide? Sorry. Okay, so yeah, this is, yeah, yeah, so just finish on this, yeah. First of all, motivation is important, and we can motivate our students using some personal information, some real life materials to show them that everything we do in the classroom exists outside the classroom and can be used. We should remember that our students are stressed before exams, especially if this exam is their first exam experience, and we should reduce this stress again by showing that nothing new is going to be tested, that everything we do in the classroom, everything we use in our real life will be tested. We should just, as soon as you want to practice, like take some photos, some interesting material, or entertain your students by using word wall and so on, think how it will help your students in terms of exam preparation. We should always remember that everything we do in the classroom should have a certain aim, should have an aim, not just for entertainment, but for example, to show the exam format, to raise awareness of requirements, to develop strategies. We should choose materials attractive, engaging, interesting, and up-to-date. Also, they should be, remember about learner autonomy. I believe it is very important because we see our students only like 2 times a week, but they can use the their own time, their free time, also for practicing, for reading, for speaking, for learning vocabulary. And the final thing, actually, is washback. You know, I have been in love with Cambridge exams since 2012, and they really help me plan balanced courses and teach balanced lessons because of this positive washback effect. So just in a couple of words, the washback effect is the impact or influence of the exam on your teaching practice. If your exam, like at the end of the course, is going to be like grammar testing, then you will be mastering grammar, and your teaching will be limited to this grammar. But if we think about Cambridge exams, they represent performance assessment. They test real life skills: reading, listening, speaking, writing. Yeah, 4 skills. And to develop these skills, we remember that our students need grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and function. So everything is really connected. And when we keep in mind all these things, our teaching becomes balanced. And this is really, really, really great. And so that is why also these exams help us not to forget about that we can't skip just writing because we don't like it. Yeah, we can't skip listening just because we don't have equipment. We have to develop every skill. So this is my message today. So thank you for being active, and if you have questions, I will be happy to answer. Yep, thank you. So thank you very much, Julia. Back to you.
Thank you, Victoria. Great examples of teaching activities. I'm sure that our participants, webinar attendees, will be able to try these activities in the classroom.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today and for sharing your experience and your advice. That's really great to see a very experienced teacher, and we are really happy. I can see so many flames.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you a lot.
And lots of thank you words. Thank you, Victoria.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. So now it's time to talk about resources. Today our session is about Cambridge Assessment English resources for levels A2, B2. And I see that George and Victoria are already here. George, Victoria, please go on air. So today we are covering our resources, Cambridge Assessment English, and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow we'll speak about materials by Cambridge University Press. So we decided to split these sessions, and today we are covering resources for 3 levels. So I can see George and Victoria, they have already joined us. I'm opening your presentation. I hope that the sound is okay. We can see you. Just a second. Can you see the slides?
Yep.
Great. So the floor is now yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Victoria? So all good. So we will be looking, as Julia said, at not just Cambridge resources, mainly Cambridge resources, but also other interesting, resources that we've been using and that we've had regular feedback on from teachers. So a little bit of everything. From A2 to B2, we'll be focusing mainly on key for schools, preliminary for schools, and first for schools. But some of these are appropriate for all levels, really, and we'll touch a little bit on young learners, I think. My name's George. I work in the Madrid office for Cambridge Assessment English, and my colleague today, Victoria.
Hello, my name is Victoria Peña, and I work with George in the Assessment Services Department.
Excellent. Right, let's go. So I think we all experienced almost exactly a year ago this massive shift to online learning. I don't know how many of you are completely online now, or completely face-to-face, or a hybrid. I think maybe the summer was more time to reflect. Everything went a bit crazy a bit quickly about a year ago. I think we had some time to reflect over the summer, and I know we've been working with a lot of teachers here in Spain, some of whom are, as I said, completely online, some are completely face-to-face again, but they have to take into account social distancing, etc. But I do think that we learned a lot during that, especially that initial sort of lockdown period. And a lot of these platforms and resources that existed before, but we never had time to really look at them. We were forced into using them. I think a lot of the teachers we've been speaking to who are back teaching face-to-face have taken over a lot of what they learned during that period. Don't you think, Victoria?
Yeah, George, I think that sharing experiences, when we had our webinars, it was great to see how everyone was suggesting ideas or explaining what worked that well for them. So these teaching community is really a reality, I think, nowadays.
Yeah, so there was some time to reflect, sometimes there wasn't. We did have to completely redesign what we were doing in the classroom. And I know perhaps at the beginning, perhaps there wasn't a lot of training and support, but hopefully since then there has been more and everybody's feeling a lot more comfortable using online resources. This is an interesting look from Puente Dura from 15 years ago now about ed tech. Sort of, you know, and we keep, I think we are still waiting for this ed tech explosion. We'll see what happens in the next year or two now. As I said, we're forced into using it a lot more. But he divided the potential effects of digital resources, technology, etc., on education, as you can see here. So right at the bottom of enhancement, you have substitution, where technology is acting as a direct substitute with no real functional change at all. Moving up to augmentation, so a direct tool substitute but with some functional improvement. Then moving up into transformation, Victoria.
Yeah, we have modification, and this has to do with technology that allows for significant task redesign, so significant improvements. And then redefinition, which is technology that allows for the creation of new tasks that previously we couldn't even think about.
And it'll be interesting to see. I know where I think we are. In the chat box, where do you think we are now? You could just write SAMR or two of them if you think we're in between. Where do you think we are at the moment after the last year? Substitution, augmentation, modification, or redefinition? Might be a bit of a delay with the chat. Yeah, any ideas about where you think we are at the moment in the chat box? Where do you think we are, Victoria?
I think we are in the augmentation maybe stage, because I know, thinking back of when I was teaching 3 years ago, we started having PDFs, or we already had PDFs of the books, and we could display them on a whiteboard. But they started to become better and have the links to the listening activities, and so I think this is an improvement compared to what there was before.
Yeah, I think we're sort of augmentation. But maybe we have like 1 foot over the dotted line. But I still think we're kind of stuck there. I do think the next few years will be very interesting. We can start looking at what technology can really help us do. I think things like Write and Improve are wonderful. And that's sort of in that dotted line as well, I think. I mean, well, maybe modification a bit. We're essentially doing the same tasks, but we're letting technology do what technology can do much more quickly and much more reliably than teachers, which then gives teachers a lot more room to do what they can do better. So yeah, I still think we're sort of approaching the middle, but not quite there yet. Let's see what happens.
And I think our participants agree.
Yeah, it looks like we've got a little bit of arguing going on. Some people are thinking modification, but yeah, I still think we're sort of just approaching that halfway at the moment. We've just changed slides. There you go. So things to bear in mind when thinking about, you know, whether we're back to face-to-face, whether we were still completely online, and thinking about that ladder that we just looked at. What do we have to take into account when delivering our classes all the time, Victoria?
Well, I think that something that is very important to take into account is the online-offline balance. So we know that we have talked about this quite a lot, like the amount of time that we spend on screen. Sometimes our students can benefit as well from some time offline. So maybe reading something on paper, or doing a task that doesn't require the computer. So I think whenever possible, we need to strike a balance in this online-offline choice.
Definitely. And in terms of the actual class itself, getting that balance between synchronous learning and asynchronous learning. We'll look at some opportunities for this later, but I think there are quite a few new opportunities for asynchronous learning that perhaps weren't as easy or as exciting to do before we sort of made this big shift. And then from a teaching point of view, it says balance between curate and create. What do we mean by that, Victoria?
Well, maybe I think curate has to do with organizing, having a collection of resources that we can use. So it's not, because creating new material constantly is very
From scratch?
Exactly.
No one has time for that.
It is good to rely on these resources that are ready to go and that we can use and adapt to our teaching situation.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be trying to think about these as we go through the rest of the presentation. Remind us if we don't. So just a few quick links that we think are wonderful for that curate, create balance, useful links for authentic material. And I think you should try as far as possible to introduce authentic material from as low a level as possible. Sometimes that's not very practical at all. Listening especially can be more challenging, finding authentic material you can use in class at lower levels. But from B2 upwards, I think you should try and use as much authentic stuff as possible. And we are fans of all of these. So BBC Lockdown Learning, there's a lot of good stuff on there. TED, if you've never used TED, Victoria has some wonderful lesson plans put together around TED. National Geographic Kids is really good as well. Breaking News English, can you tell us about Breaking News English, Victoria?
Yeah, it's a website with real news, and then they are accompanied by a lesson plan that you can adapt, so you can choose the activities that you want to do with that piece of news.
Film English as well. It's a lovely website with stuff at various levels based around, films. So at least we can try and that would be quite a nice. Well, I mean, I know it's not off screen, is it? Really, you don't have to be online to watch a film, depending, I suppose, on the film. But it'd be a nice ongoing. So I mean, often we give our students, sort of smallish chunks or text to do for homework, but if you could stretch a film over a couple of weeks, just have a little slot for it every day, I think that's and get your students involved in choosing the film. So we'll start with teacher tools and resources. One of our favorites, which has made considerable progress. Oh no, sorry, I've jumped the gun. Teacher tools and resources. Victoria, do you want to talk us through these before I get carried away?
Yeah, of course we have dictionaries, still very, very useful. And nowadays with the online dictionaries, we are going to look at that a bit later, but pronunciation, examples, collocations, the wealth of information that they offer is great, and something that our students should definitely benefit from. Also, document sharing options for brainstorming, for peer assessment, Google Docs, Google Drive, to have everything ready for your students, just like sharing a link or using a QR code. Padlet, of course, we cannot have one webinar without talking about Padlet.
Jamboard as well, which we haven't played with enough yet. I hear it's a Google kind of version of Jamboard, of Padlet. I don't think it's quite the same, but I've heard good things about Jamboard as well. And lastly, a selection of ready-to-go games and activities. So Quizlet, Memrise. I saw Victoria earlier was talking about Wordwall. There's so much great stuff ready to go on WordWall, and there's Kahoot if you have access to Kahoot. We will look at a couple of ways to use Padlet hereafter, okay? And I've lost, I'm on the wrong screen, wait a sec. There are some ready-to-go Cambridge Kahoots. If you go to our website and just Google Cambridge Kahoot, there are free Kahoots for young learners, which have been designed by some of our top authors. Like Anne Robinson was involved, I think, and Karen Saxby, who were involved in the Cambridge Fun 4 series. So there's lots of ready-to-go stuff there as well. WordWall, I remember lots of really quite specific stuff. I was quite surprised, like first part 1 speaking. There's a lot of really good stuff ready to go, which you can use to supplement, what you're already doing in class. And now, what I was talking about earlier, one of my favorite, if I was teaching again, this is just a godsend, is Weekly. Can you talk us through this, Victoria?
Yeah. Weekly is a website you can choose. It's a website by Cambridge Assessment English. You can choose the level that you want to practice, the teaching weeks that you have available, and also the time that you have for preparation, for exam preparation. And then clicking, you will have a personalized plan that you can use with resources, lesson plans, and activities ready to go. So depending on, you can also, I think, adjust how important the importance that you want to give to the different skills and components, and that way you can personalize even more the
so
plan.
if you want to focus more on writing rather than listening, you just reorder that before this screen, click a button, and it's all ready for you. It's an amazing tool, and a lot of work has been done on it over the last year. A lot of the work that's been done over the last year. I think when it first started, it was A2 Key for schools and B1 preliminary for schools. Then they added First for schools as well, and now it covers young learners. It is free, yes. Nearly everything I think everything we look at today is free. So please go along to Weekly. You get PDF lesson plans with links to all the resources you need to use, audio, etc. It's a great tool to help you save some time. Practice makes perfect. What is this section of the website, Victoria?
Well, it is a section in the website of our website where you can find resources to practice all 4 skills. So for your students to practice all 4 skills, it has a section for lesson plans where you can download ready-to-go lesson plans for the different levels. The same with a PDF document for you to download. And also you can be part of this teaching community that we've mentioned just a minute ago, and benefit from ideas that work well for other teachers. And if you want to, you can even submit your own tips.
Please do. Please do. The more teachers we have involved in this, the better. And it is just it's become a sort of forum for things that work well, and you can do it all by level and by skill as well. Please check it out. And there you go. You can submit your practice test top tip, share that, and then it is entered into the library, I suppose. Excellent. So, focusing on reading, Victoria. Sometimes one of the more difficult skills, especially as we see in our exam results, the higher students get, reading tends to become trickier, which a lot of teachers, we tend to think writing's the most difficult. Writing and then maybe speaking or listening. But generally speaking, from B2 onwards, we would say writing and speaking tend to be the strongest, alongside grammar, then listening and reading. So as much support for this as possible. And I know a lot of it is challenging. I don't know if this is a generational thing, but dealing with bigger, longer texts and knowing how to approach them successfully, I think is something that perhaps needs more time working on in class. So pre-teaching, leading into reading, Victoria, useful resources?
Yeah, visual input is always very, very useful. So flashcards, we can see here that there are a lot of places online where you can download or obtain photographs that you can use with your students. So always a nice way to get them to speak and to activate their schemata.
And things like Quizlet, where you can go beyond flashcards and, you know, reformulate in lots of different games, etc. I spoke about Write and Improve briefly earlier. I don't know if you've come across Read and Improve. This is still it's still in development. It's a beta version, but you go along to that link and choose the level you want, and the AI, it scans the internet for articles or pieces, texts, then it decides what level more or less they are suitable for, and then you can click on or choose the article. Choose the article that you want to use, and it comes up on screen. As so. You can then hover over pretty much every word, and it will give you a dictionary definition. It will then. The AI gives you its estimation of what part of speech it is, depending on its context in the sentence. It also gives you a word cloud of common collocations, isn't it, Victoria? It's a really nice way to keep building on collocation and, you know, more sort of natural use of vocab, or vocab in a more authentic use. Beyond that, one really cool thing is just at the bottom there, you can see there's a comprehension test where candidates can write a summary. So they summarize the article, and it gives them 2 marks, one on how effective the summary is, and another one on their language, using, I think, the same technology as Write and Improve. So I'll give them a C1 on their writing and maybe a mark. It's not a CFR level on the summary, is it? Anyway, it's a scale, so you can see one for language and another one for how well they've summarized, which is a great skill to practice. We were talking about it earlier. I saw Victoria beforehand talking about it as well. Summarizing, paraphrasing, rewriting, and this does it all instantly. So again, less work for you teachers. So direct your students towards Read and Improve. It's still not finished, and needs a lot more data and input. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun with it.
And I think, George, that the fact that everything is there, that students just go on the website and have the dictionary tool there, and also the reading comprehension test there as well, I think is very easy for them to engage with and do it in their own time if they want to practice this specific skill.
Exactly, and depending how much you trust your students, they know what their level is. You know, they can choose what they want to read about, which again puts a bit more responsibility in their hands. Will hopefully help with engagement and motivation. As long as they've clicked on the right level, there will be hundreds of articles that they can choose from. Choose something they like, summarize it, and it's all automated. So yeah, please use it. It will continue to improve. We also have Exam Lift. We'll look at this in a bit more detail later. I think at the moment we have Exam Lift for A2 Key for schools and B1 Preliminary for schools. Is that right, Victoria? Had great feedback on this. It's a mobile-based app. I think it works on tablet, but not as well. It was specifically designed for mobile, so it's very much sort of on-the-go practice, and it's quite adaptive as well. So it will keep an eye on how well your students are doing in certain areas, and then that will feed into what material pops up later on and the timings of everything. Really good practice for some reading. I think good practice for their expeditious, their skimming, scanning, global, local reading. Helps them train on their focus and processing information. Things are timed as well. I think there's a timed and a non-timed version. I'm not sure. And you do have quite a bit of variety and choice in terms of how they want to engage with the stuff on Exam Lift.
And I think the fact that it's on a mobile makes it more authentic for the students, because they are on the mobile all the time. So it is something that is really realistic compared to what they normally do.
Exactly.
In daily life.
We'll look at this in a bit more detail later. So moving on to listening.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria, some trusted, or we would say trusted sources of material for listening. We looked at some briefly at the beginning, but Breaking News English, once again, the BBC is always great. I don't know if you've seen the minute news summary on BBC. I used to start lots of classes with that. It was very nice. It was nice. It gives you a minute to ease into the class as well. Lyrics training has some really nice activities on it. Listen a Minute. You know Listen a Minute, Victoria?
Yeah, it is. It is very similar to the Breaking News English. The idea, the recordings are very short, a minute, and then there are some lesson plans that go with the recording. So it is quite useful.
Excellent. Moving on. For listening, Virtually Anywhere. This has been around for a few years now. Again, it's pitched at B1, B2. So it'll be a bit much for A2, I think. But I think there are how many, 9 or 10 episodes, I think?
Around that, yeah.
It's a sort of radio mystery show, something like that. It's got a little bit of Indiana Jones and a little bit of aimed at for schools candidates, so aimed at teenagers. And again, it has lesson plans built in and ready to go for you to use in class, as you can see here, for either B1 or B2. Yes, Victoria?
You can also download the script. So if you want to, if you have maybe an A2 group who is they are very good, they are strong, maybe you can give them a bit more support with the script, and they can still benefit from these.
Yeah, I think anything. I mean, everything that we've looked at, nearly all of those, you can also download the audio script, and an increasing number of TED Talks. I don't know about all of them, but a lot of TED Talks, you can download the audio script as well. Very useful stuff you can do before and after using the audio script, or the tape script. I still say tape script, but apparently that's out of date now. Again, you can find all of this on our website very easily. Just Google Virtually Anywhere, and everything ready to go for you.
Yeah, and the fact that it is a series, so there is a thread, a common thread, I think is more motivating.
Exactly, it's slightly, they want us to know what happens next, which is always interesting. And yes, lesson plans are a treasure for busy teachers like all of you, not lazy teachers, busy teachers like all of us. And it's always nice to have a few lesson plans, in your pocket, ready to go. Or, that you can take and adapt if necessary and just take a few chunks out of them. On to writing. Victoria, I think we're approaching some Padlet now, aren't we?
Yeah, we
Excellent. are. Sorry if you saw us earlier. We looked at one of these briefly earlier in our A2 session. But a really nice way to use Padlet or something similar for writing the picture story task in A2 Key for Schools. Victoria?
Yeah, you can use Padlet to maybe try to get your students to predict what the content of the story is going to be. So giving ideas in terms of content, but also maybe to work on the vocabulary and the expressions that they are going to use. So with a more linguistic focus here. So as you can see, you can set up 3 columns with different forms of picnic and phrases with picnic, and get your students to contribute with their own sentence.
Padlet's so easy to use, and it is very much a sort of blank canvas. Another way, at much higher levels, you could just have them brainstorming second conditionals, third conditionals that I'm going to use within this, and get that collaborative approach. Then everybody can use that big piece of brainstorming to then inform what they're doing. Lots of different ways to use this. I think we're going to look at an exciting one on recycling later. If we moved up to B1 preliminary, writing an article, I think this one is about, there's the task. What makes you laugh? What do you find funny? Blah, blah, blah. How could we use this, Victoria?
We could get our students to answer the questions at the content points, so fulfill the content points on the Padlet. So maybe give this for homework. What makes you laugh? Can you explain a bit what makes you laugh? And then that way you are again brainstorming and doing some preparation for a task that they can do later in class.
Writing itself online, lots and lots of different platforms and resources you can use. Starting off working on vocab, things like Flippity or More Words. How do these work, Victoria?
Well, Flippity is a website with a lot of different activities. You have templates that you can adapt, and you can put the content that you want to work on, and then super quickly and super fast you can have your activity ready to go. It also, if you want to print it, it has also a print version, so really useful. Then More Words, for example, here we can see an activity to practice suffixes or prefixes, and it's something that you can do maybe at the beginning of the class, 5 minutes. What is the common suffix for all these words? And the fastest can get points. So different options to work on vocabulary and the flexibility that your students have when creating new words or coming up with new words.
And you've been, Victoria earlier was speaking about Word Wall, etc. Again, a great resource. Flippity, Quizlet, Quizzes are all great resources to help supplement what you're doing in class, and it adds that sort of gamified edge to it. Going a little more traditional, Victoria?
Traditional but modern, George.
A modern version also. I mean, I love the feel of a dictionary.
I know, but I have to say that this is more useful, probably. It is much faster. So you type in the words, and then you can see. I think that one of the best things is the pronunciation tool, because phonetic transcription is not something that our students will understand, especially at lower levels. So I think that the pronunciation is a great improvement. And also the examples, the collocations, the fact that it can be updated more quickly than a paper dictionary, I think makes a huge difference.
Well, she won that argument, didn't she? Moving on, Pen Friends. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Pen Friends. This has been around for a few years now. It's ongoing as far as I know. We've had lots of success with this. It's a platform where I think you need to sign up as a school or as a teacher, and then you can upload as many classes as you want, I think. So you would ask for how many students in the class, what sort of level they are, what sort of age they are. That all gets sent to Cambridge, and then it's matched up with a similar sized level class somewhere else in the world. And they can, it's the old Pen Friend tradition, really, just made easier and dealt with online. So this goes from starters up to preliminary. So pre-A1, A1, A2, B1. I think we've had quite an increase in this since the beginning of lockdown. Again, you go along here, register. Everything will be verified in Cambridge, so to make sure that you are being paired up with, real classes around the world. And it's just a nice way to, again, take advantage of what technology can do.
And you can also select the topic, so it is quite flexible and easy to use.
And here are some examples. There's Victoria's, it was Alina from the Ukraine. Create your own invention. It's just a nice way to link students up, around the world who are all preparing, for the same levels and the same exams. So moving on to reviewing. I spoke about this earlier.
George.
Pardon?
This is your favorite, right?
This is my favorite resource. I think this is the best resource. We have lots of wonderful resources, but no. So just quickly, the students can't sign up. It has to be done by the teacher. Okay. And so the teacher has to sign up, and all of the information is dealt with, very
it is a safe environment.
And legally, exactly. So students don't have direct access. It would have to come via the teachers. Okay. On to reviewing. I mean, for writing and reviewing, really. But I mentioned this earlier. If you haven't used Write and Improve yet, please have a look. I think I do think it's one of the best resources we have. You go along to the website, sign up, create an account. We would always encourage students to make an account, because then they have a record of everything that they've done. They are then presented with a selection of workbooks, a beginner, intermediate and advanced, with lots of different ready-to-go tasks on there. You as teachers, Victoria, can set up your own workbooks.
You can create your own workbooks and design your own tasks, so create it from scratch, and then you can invite your students to that workbook just by including their email addresses or sending them a code, and then they will be able to access that workbook and produce the task.
Yeah, and all of that is free. There is an additional functionality called Class View, which I think is paid for on a subscription basis, but everything that we've looked at, so students go along, if you don't know, they write their answers, click a button, and they get instant feedback, or maybe 4 or 5 seconds. So it will give them a CFR level for their writing overall, and then it will give them feedback at word, phrase, sentence level. We don't have a screenshot here, do we? No, sorry. Carry on, Victoria.
No, sorry, also content. They also get some feedback in terms of content, so whether they have fulfilled the different bullet points, yes?
Yeah,
or
the content points, yeah.
Exactly. And go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to say, and this has been around for 5 or 6 years now. When it first came out, I was quite dubious, and I was like, and you could sort of trick it. And then it was focused, it had been trained the most back then on sort of A2, B1. What's different about Write and Improve from a spell checker or Grammarly is that it is using artificial intelligence to mark all of this, but that the system was trained using millions of exam scripts from real candidates, real scripts that were all marked by our human examiners, annotated and then fed into the system. So unlike Grammarly or a spell checker, it knows what is typical of an A2 student. It knows the typical errors at B1. And it, as I said, has been trained on this huge amount of data straight from our exams. So it is pretty much unlike anything else, I think.
And also, George, the fact that it doesn't correct the mistakes for the students. It is true that when it's a spelling problem, the feedback is very clear. So did you mean that?
Yeah.
But when there is another type of problem, a phrase or a sentence level, then it points at where the problem is, but then the responsibility is on the students.
Exactly.
So to find the mistake and correct it. So it is a learning tool because of that, because students can produce different drafts or several drafts and see how their level improves.
Exactly. It might say, this word doesn't look right to us, or is there a word missing here? So again, it's sort of scaffolded feedback. It's not red pen, this is wrong, this is right. It's putting the responsibility in their hands. And the fact that it's all online, it works on mobile phone, tablet, and laptops, is the instantaneous nature of it. Because, I mean, we all know, even if you're a very conscientious teacher and you've got 30 students in your class, they give you the writing. You might give it back to them the next day, probably not always. And students, they do their piece of writing, they hand it in, they forget about it, and all they really want to see is what mark they get, and then it disappears. Whereas this, it really gets them engaging with their writing. And as Victoria said, this idea of drafting, revisiting, improving bit by bit, which I think is a very useful skill, will be a very useful skill in their later academic careers as well. So please check it out if you haven't already. And at higher levels, it's very useful. It's grammar, vocab, wise, and content. It's pretty solid. Once you're getting into sort of B2, C1, thinking about organization and communicative achievement and those slightly more complex criteria at high levels, I don't know. I shouldn't think it's very good at that. But again, it means that for those high level students, you as teachers can focus on that. You can focus on their organization, their register, whereas all of the nitty gritty feedback has been done for you by the system. So so have a play with it. Oh, I've lost my mouse. There you go. Right, speaking, Victoria. Word wall to start off with, I think, is what I mentioned earlier. This is great. Can you talk us through this?
Yeah, a website with ready-to-go material. You can create your own material as well. And I think the great thing is that it suggests other activities that could work very well with the vocabulary that you have included. So really, like, you introduce the vocabulary and maybe you have a suggestion of 4 or 5 different ways in which your students can practice that vocabulary. So really, really cool, because it feels like a game, but
it adds that random edge to it. It's really nice for a warmer or for a warm down at the end of the class. You can just click a button and it's nice. The random edge to it, and as Victoria said, the sort of gamified side of it, I think will help engage our younger students a bit more. Other ideas for helping with our speaking exam, Victoria, the sort of long term?
Exactly. We saw that before with the activity that we mentioned for word wall. It was more like maybe to practice the part 1 of our speaking exams. Here, we have an opportunity to talk about or to practice for the individual long term. So to engage our students, we can ask them to suggest topics that they would like to talk about in class, and create a word cloud like the one we can just see there, and then they can choose. You can assign the topics, or they can even choose the topics that they would like to talk about in class. And if you think they need a bit more support, maybe at lower levels, B1 that you start introducing the long term, you can support them adding some words, some phrases, some questions for them to know what to say. For example, tell us about your family or your friends. How often do you?
Yeah, give them as much support, or it depends what stage you're at. This is sort of scaffolding approach. Depends how much support you think they need, but as much support as possible at the beginning of the journey towards doing their speaking exam, and just take it away gradually as you go. Mentimeter, most people say Mentimeter, but we say thermometer, don't we? So Mentimeter is a great tool for this. It's a super quick word cloud tool. So you send them the link, say what would we like to talk about. What was this? Things beginning with F. Except pizza. Pizza and music. Was this you, Victoria? Was this you?
Yeah, well,
ice cream. This would be pistachio ice cream. It's a really nice, easy tool for brainstorming and things like that. Thinking back to the beginning, we were talking about synchronous versus asynchronous. A lot of the stuff we've been looking at thus far. Well, no, not all of it. Well, a bit of a mixture, really. But for speaking practice, especially, asynchronous options, Victoria?
Yeah, Flipgrid is a website where you can create tasks and send them to your students, and then your students can. This works very well for the long term, doesn't it, George?
Yeah.
You can record your video talking about the long term, okay, with the task, and then send it to your
exactly.
Send it to you. Sorry.
And it's super easy to use. We were speaking to teachers last summer who were apparently delivering their whole class using Flipgrid. Sounds maybe a little extreme, but you go along. Welcome to Flipgrid. You log in. Here's my grid. I originally called it Speaking Practice Part 2, and then once that's set up, I can share it with my students. It went to Victoria, and there. I know this is after you've done it. Yeah, this is after you've done it. Victoria recorded her video, then you had the chance to watch it before you submitted it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, which I think is nice as students. Well, firstly, it's good because it makes them feel more comfortable that they can redo it if they want, but then we are subtly getting them to self-assess all the time whilst they're doing that anyway. I think it's one big advantage of the video option. And then once Victoria had sent it to me, this popped up on my screen. So I had, there's a space for me to write comments, and there are 2 predefined drop downs for give them a mark for ideas and a mark for performance. And it's all very sort of teenage friendly. It's a really nice resource platform for especially for speaking practice. For candidates who aren't comfortable being on video, you could use Voice Spice.
This is an alternative for those students who, as George said, maybe don't feel that comfortable with a video. So they can record their long term and send it to you. The good thing is that it is very easy. You can see that you can send the link, and it's really straightforward.
Same as Flipgrid. And again, it's nice and colorful and fun, and you can give thumbs up and flames, and hopefully it will keep them a bit more engaged. And I think Voice Spice has just gone mobile, hasn't it? I think it used to just be on laptops, but now they can do it on their mobiles as well. Another nice option. Speak and improve. So we've spoken about read and improve. We've spoken about write and improve. Speak and improve is, again, it's still a research project, but it's fun. It's a good way for students to practice. And I don't know if any of you have students who are preparing for our test LinguaSkill. This is basically the same test, the same task types as you get on LinguaSkill. So it's all candidate-computer interaction. It starts off with some sort of 10-second questions, or questions that gives you 10 seconds to answer, then 20 seconds to answer, and then maybe some tasks with some pictures. I can't remember, Victoria. All fairly familiar. With input, time to prepare, and then they need to speak. It will give them a CFR at the end of it. I wouldn't bet my house on that CFR result, because it is still in development. It hasn't had all of the data, all of the input data that Write and Improve has had yet, but it does need people to use it. So get your students out. Again, we don't want them bursting into tears and pulling out of the exam because it says they got lower than what they were expecting. Be a little, take it with a pinch of salt, the CFR levels. But again, it's a nice way to practice. Very good practice for that long term as well. Having time to prepare, and then having to sit and speak for a minute.
And also, yeah, George, very useful the thing about the time, because sometimes they need practice to know how long a minute feels or 20 seconds feels. So this tool is giving them this preparation and this practice.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps for higher levels, and we've used Screencast-O-Matic. Well, we've spoken about using it for giving feedback on writing, haven't we? So a really nice tool, which basically, as far as I understand, records what is happening on your screen. So you can either create little videos with it, or you can add comments. We were looking at it for giving feedback on writing instead of using Write and Improve, or using your green pen or your yellow pen or your red pen, giving them some audio feedback on their writing as they go. It's a really nice way to sort of integrate skills a little bit more, and get them practicing, their reading and their listening. Oh, sorry, I was just reading the chat box. No, I mean, we have looked at Cambridge and non-Cambridge tools. I think a healthy balance. But there are some great Cambridge tools. There are some great non-Cambridge tools. We're not saying that at all. We might get told off for saying that, but no, there's a lot of very cool stuff out there which we have nothing to do with. And we've tried to show you things that we've tested and we think work very well that aren't Cambridge. Lastly, Cambridge English TV. You can see lots of exciting webinars. And then beyond that, Victoria?
Yeah, you can have access to speaking videos with the examiner comments, so for your students to practice and for you to practice these peer assessment or self-assessment you can start with the videos and then move on to self-assessment and peer assessment. You can also find videos explaining some grammar points or some more with a more language focus.
Some nice little idiom videos, short little idiom videos, which
Exactly.
sometimes I think would just make the idioms stick. Sometimes I remember some classes, this was when I was learning, not teaching. I remember our teacher was just like, we're looking at idioms this class, and gave us a list of like 30 idioms. And yeah, like homework was learn these with no real context to it. So things like that I think can really help.
And also something, you know, it's a video that I love is a video with the speaking examiners talking about what they expect from a candidate. And it is amazing. I mean, I think it is very useful. My students used to watch it once the exam is approaching, and really it is a reflection tool. It's an opportunity for them to discuss, and it is really useful. So please check it out.
Exam lift, again, which we spoke about before. We'll have a look at a few examples of this, I think, for B1 preliminary. You can practice all the skills, I think. I'm not sure about extended writing on this, but plenty of practice for all of the other parts of the reading, the writing paper and the listening and the speaking. They're all skills-based activities. There is some short writing, I think, but if you use this alongside Write and Improve, you're absolutely fine. Please get your students to check this out. It's a really cool app, and we've had great feedback on it. And as I said, as the players or students complete the activities, they get instant feedback on their performance, and how they perform here will affect what they see later on. So again, this is a good example, I think, of moving up from augmentation into, what was the next one?
Modification.
That's it, exactly. We are beginning to use technology to change the task we're doing, or at least to inform the material that follows, and to try and tailor make and personalize the learning experience as far as possible, which if we had the time as teachers we would all do, but it's quite difficult to do that for a class of 30 students. We appreciate. So yeah, that was just coming back to this, just to have a think. So again, I think, yeah, exam lift is moving into this modification kind of an area. Some of Write and Improve is as well, just because of the speed of it. It's essentially doing what teachers would do, but it does change hopefully changes the approach students take to their writing.
And the experience, I think, is different as well.
Exactly. And so to finish off, we're just going to show you one of Victoria's little babies. Recycling, Victoria. We've got a nice mixture here of Google and Padlet, I think.
Yeah.
You want to talk us through this just to finish off, Victoria, just to show how we can bring these all together in a lesson plan?
Yeah, this is what we were mentioning, that technology has these advantages that you can have everything in one place, and then students find it very easy to access all the different resources. So we can start, this is all based on Google Classroom. So you can start with a warm-up activity, asking students to interact together and ask and answer these questions. Once they have activated the schemata and practice some of the vocabulary that they will use later on, they are ready to move on to the next stage, which is a listening stage. Okay, listening activity. And this is an example of how, because this is aimed at A2 students, more or less. So a very short video, authentic video, but with support, visual support for students to be able to follow the content. And then there is a Google form that students can fill in, answering the questions based on the video. So I don't know, maybe it was only my experience, but sometimes when I gave my students homework, they couldn't find it online, they couldn't find it, and it was a problem.
That's a good excuse.
Exactly. It is a good
cyber dog ate the video.
Exactly. Yeah. So with these, they have no excuse, really. Everything is there and very easy to find. And also you can, with a Google form, you can give them the feedback, so they can click on.
I get instant feedback on that, so you don't need to spend time on that.
The results, exactly.
And then on to the slightly more exciting activity. Well, no, they're all exciting, Victoria. But
They are all exciting, George.
this is fun. A really nice way to use Padlet, and we have done this. I think we did this with some Russian teachers back in May, maybe.
Maybe.
We've done it with lots of groups, I think, of maximum of about 50, 60 teachers. We haven't risked it on a big session, but it works very well. Do you want to talk us through this quickly, Victoria?
Yeah, you have a Padlet, and you have a box with objects, a box with materials, 3 different recycling bins for plastic, for paper, for glass, and then a box to reuse objects. And then students just go on the Padlet and they have to put the objects in the correct recycling bin.
So it starts off just with 4 boxes, or it has the objects, materials, and the bins. But then as the students come in, each of them creates in their groups, create their own little box, as you can see here, and list everything. So blanket made of wool. What did you do with that? You reused it and sent it to a dog shelter.
Because there was an option for reusing as well.
Exactly. Magazines made of paper, we have to put it in the yellow bin. So it's a really nice, and I've seeing how excited teachers got about this. I think it will work really well in class. It'll probably be a lot quicker doing it with younger students. But it's, again, a nice example of how you can use Padlet to do something that would take quite a lot of setup and be quite dynamic in class. It's probably even quicker or easier to do it there. And I think you can get that QR code there. Can you, Victoria? Is that straight to your Padlet?
I think so, yeah.
You probably won't be able to edit it though, but so you can see what it looks like and try and replicate that. It was a fun activity to.
And the good thing as well is that if you do this in class and maybe students go back home and they don't have access to it, but doing it on Padlet, they will always.
Yeah, it will always be there. Exactly. And then finishing off after the recycling, Victoria.
Yeah, choice boards, always great to give students the possibility to feel more responsible. You can give them different options with different points and then award points for the different activities that they do on the choice board. I think it is a way to engage them, to feel that they feel a bit more motivated. And in the end, they are all activities that are going to be useful.
And you can use these from little ones all the way up. I saw one the other day aimed at B2 first, I think, and it had a use of Englishy grammar focus. And it had 3 levels of difficulty. I think you got 2 points for the easiest, 3 for the next, and 4 for the hardest. And they had to get from one side of the board to the other. And they had to score at least 12 points. So they could just go 4.4.4 point, or they could go 2.2.3.4. You see what I mean? So it's built-in differentiation. And again, as Victoria said, it's giving the students some sort of control and decision over how they get to the same endpoint. I think can be very, very useful for engaging them, etc. And we have we're supposed to finish now, so we'll just finish off with our last slides. I wish we had more time. There's never enough time to talk about everything, but I hope that what we've looked at today has been useful. Again, supporting every teacher. This area of our website, you can access all of our resources via there. What else, Victoria? Oh, a Spanish website. It doesn't matter. This is the Spanish version, but your new English classroom, which I think we spoke about earlier on this morning, if we saw us then.
It has lesson plans and guides and tips and resources, but it was launched in September and it has been constantly updated. Yeah. So please check it out because it has the resources it offers can be adapted to the online situation, but also if you are teaching in a hybrid context or if you are teaching face-to-face. There are different options for you to choose from.
Supporting every teacher, World of Better Learning on Cambridge University Press's website. has a selection again of tips, resources, lesson plans, blogs that are constantly updated. So make sure you keep an eye on that every now and then. And if you have some spare time, we are running this MOOC again on the, is it the 19th of April?
19th of April.
Off the top of my head. We had an enormous number of people signing up for this because we're all on lockdown, I think. But the feedback from it was very good. I've done some bits and pieces of it. Victoria did more. Some really useful insights and approaches to teaching English online available on that MOOC. And and the digital teacher. We haven't spoken about the digital teacher. Very quickly, Victoria.
Yes, a website with you can, it's like a self-assessment of your digital abilities. You can answer the questions and then get a profile, and it suggests ways in which you can improve your digital abilities.
Yeah.
And there is also a section with reviews of tools that work really well, not produced by us, not written by us, but by experts.
External experts. So
External
giving
experts.
reviews of things like Padlet, Google Class. Some of them have built-in lesson plans, etc., ready to go. So please have a bit of an explore on digital teacher. Again, somebody, and I know none of you are stupid, I'm sure you're all very busy. You cannot find everything we've spoken about via our portal. Things like WordWall and Quizlet and blah, blah, you won't be able to find those via the Cambridge one. But have a look on the digital teacher. Because again, there are reviews and lesson plans of external resources available on there. So it's quite a nice way to, if you've heard of something and you're not sure, maybe have a look on the digital teacher, see if there's anything about it there. Okay. I think we can probably put together a PDF with all of the links that we've looked at today and send that to Julia, just for the things that aren't within, that you won't be able to find directly within Cambridge. I'm sure she'll be in touch with that. And we better stop. Thank you all for having us.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully see some of you tomorrow and Wednesday. And have a lovely week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Julia, are you there?
I'm here. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, George. Great presentation, fantastic resources, and I've already received some Pen Friends registrations. That's really great. So even during your presentation, people decided to just, I would like to remind our participants that Pen Friends is only for schools. This platform, resource is not for private teachers, students or parents. This is only for schools, and when you register, please add correct information, because we check each and every registration.
Yeah, everything is checked.
Safety is our priority.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much. So this is the end of the first day of our online conference, Unpacking Cambridge Exams. Thank you everybody for joining us today. I'd like to remind you that the recording of the webinar will be published, will be added to our YouTube channel, Cambridge Assessment English Russia, and a follow-up email with materials and your certificates of attendance will be shared with you within 1 week. So thanks again, and see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to talk about B1 preliminary. We start at 3 p.m. Moscow time, and there will be 4 exciting sessions. Thanks a lot.